several people were there, including a gentleman by the name of Robert Eminator. Never heard of the guy? A science fiction writer who promotes UFOs, which is another reason to doubt UFOs. Because the same guy who says UFOs are real spent his whole life saying the moon landings are real. You see that? Same thing with the astronauts. Stephen Greer's #1 source that UFOs are real. I have a book coming out about this as well at my website. He says his #1 source that UFOs are real is the Apollo astronauts said so. You see that?
And which one? Edgar Mitchell?
Well, yeah, Edgar Mitchell among many others. And
let's come back to that. I gotta take a leak. Let's come back to that, and this is great. I appreciate you. Thank you for coming here. It's been a lot of fun, and I hope you don't mind me being annoying, but I have to cover this. We'll get into more.
You don't have to.
I do.
No, you don't.
This is the right way to do it. Trust me. Trust me.
Okay.
We'll take a leak. We'll be right back. So, we were at Gus Grisham died in a fire. There's another guy who NASA had hired to make a report, and he had this 500-page report. I think it was like 500 pages about how badly mismanaged the whole Apollo program was, and that he saw so many flaws in it that he thought it was never going to get off the ground. And then
Thomas Barron.
Yes, Ronald Thomas Barron, right? And he died on train tracks.
That's right. That was kind of
with his family.
CIA hits kind of go through fads. And there was a big fad period where a lot of people's cars stalled at train crossings. I think back then this was before DNA evidence, and it would get rid of the forensic evidence.
That's also how they killed those kids in Mena, Arkansas, that found the cocaine. That was the whole part of that Tom Cruise movie, the true story behind the Tom Cruise movie. With what was that guy's name again? That Barry Seals, yeah, who was smuggling drugs and dropping them off into Mena, Arkansas, while Bill Clinton was the governor. And they killed these kids and put them on train tracks.
Here's a relevant point about Bill Clinton, 2 of them. On page 156 of his book, you know this. He says that he doubts as president the authenticity of the moon landings.
Well, he said it in a very coy way, right?
But that's what he's saying.
Well, he told an anecdote about a carpenter that he was working with in 1969. He was saying how amazing it is that these guys, these people, they landed on the moon. And the carpenter said, no, those TV fellows can get you to believe anything. Now, I don't believe a thing they say. And then he said, back then I thought the old guy was a crank. I'm paraphrasing. But now, after 8 years in the White House, I think he might have been ahead of his time.
I think that was not paraphrasing. I think that
Hell yeah, pimp. How you living?
But here's the second point that's relevant.
Word for word, I'm sure.
But here's the second point about President Clinton. When he finally, after denying it 20 times, admitted that he had an affair, a reporter asked him, why did you do it? And you know what he said, why? Well, because I could. Meaning because I could get away with it. That's what people need to see. They did fake the moon landing, and why did they do it? Because they could. And these people are still in power. It's a dangerous thing.
Also because they wanted to win this Cold War with Russia. They wanted to get this economic and cultural victory, right?
Well, that could be their excuse.
So here's another question.
You murder Americans to do that?
Allegedly murder Americans.
Well,
we assume. Yeah, but we don't really know. The Thomas Ronald Barron was a wild one because that report was buried, correct? After that?
That's right.
And in the report, do we have details of exactly what was said in the report?
Well, basically, he said what Gus Grissom said. They're a decade or more away from going to the moon. And that was after the Apollo 1 fire, the Barron report. And of course, he died right before he was to testify to Congress, right? What a coincidence.
Yeah.
About how NASA was so far behind schedule. Now, NASA has never kept a schedule a single time in their entire history, except the most complicated mission of all time. They were ahead of schedule. And do you realize there's never been an aerospace machine, airplane, whatever, that ever worked on the first occasion, not even the Wright brothers plane, and a 747 after millions of aircraft had already been built, 10 years more technologically advanced than the Apollo rocket. It took 168 attempts to get off the ground. And yet, for the first time in history, there was an aviation project that worked on the first occasion that happened to be the most complicated one of all time. You see that coincidence? How about that?
So humans have accomplished some pretty amazing things, but the leap between that and the moon landings, in terms of getting biological living human beings to survive this 2-week journey, to land on the moon and come back. How long did it take total? All days in space?
Well, from setting the goal to doing it, it took only 8.5 years.
But the actual
and
launch?
Since then, they're talking about it taking 15 years to quote return to the moon, even though they have 54 years better technology. It's going to take twice the amount of time to return to the moon with 5 decades better technology.
But again, isn't that you'd also say because it's not as focused an effort? It's not like
well, it is a focus effort because 8 presidents have said they're going to return to the moon in 5 years, right?
Yeah, they all say that.
You had Bush Sr. said, and Reagan said it, Clinton said it,
Bush
Obama
W.
said, and Bush Sr., Bush Jr., Trump. They've all said we're going to return. Yeah, but he said we're going to go to the moon by 2024. Time's running out. Tick tock, tick tock.
Yeah, we got a couple months left.
Well, they said they were going to have people orbiting the moon. They said in 2014 we will have people orbiting the moon in 2018, 100% behind schedule.
My point
and
was,
they only have mannequins orbiting them.
So my point was that the leap between what we do now in terms of the difficulty of getting into space, getting into low Earth orbit and coming back, it gets compounded greatly by actually going to another planet, landing, taking off, coming back. Like that's much more difficult. And the only time that was ever accomplished was between 1969 and 1972. 7 attempts, 6 successful.
Allegedly accomplished.
Allegedly accomplished. But let's just say what they're saying. Just what they're saying. It seems very strange that no one else did it. It seems very strange that it stopped right there, and it seems very strange that no other missions.
That's right. It's the only technological achievement in the entire history of the world that no one from any nation could repeat 50 years later.
Now, just their position. Like it took so much money and so many resources that we don't have that would be better served going to other things, and that's why they haven't been back. Why should they go back? They went there. They understand they can prove they went there because there's laser reflectors on the moon that they can shoot lasers at, and they will bounce off and show you that there's a laser reflector on the moon.
Well, that's not an argument either, because in 1958, according to Scientific American magazine, they were bouncing lasers off the moon without any man-made reflectors thereon. So all they had to do was choose a landing site that had reflective surfaces. Additionally, Russia put an unmanned probe on the moon with laser reflectors.
Yes.
So that doesn't prove anything.
I was getting into that. But that's the argument.
Well, you're welcome. I did it for you.
Thank you. That is the argument, though, right?
Yeah.
So the argument is the laser reflectors prove. Another, like one of the goofiest ones, was when they used the reconnaissance imagery. And they showed, look, we can see the landing site. Like, what are you pointing at?
You have to understand, they already faked a full-body picture of an astronaut standing on the surface of the moon, which was filmed in Clovis, New Mexico, according to an eyewitness. Okay? So you're asking the Fox for further proof that they didn't steal a chicken? Yeah. You're saying after faking a full-body image that was shot in the Air Force Base and pretending it's on the moon.
My client, Mr. Fox, is an upstanding citizen, and my client refutes all allegations.
Well, the same fraudulent organization has a little shadow from an alleged lunar satellite that says this is part of the lunar lander.
Yeah, there's a lot of weirdness.
Yeah.
Another bit of weirdness that is fun to watch people do mental gymnastics to explain away is the flag blowing in the breeze. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This photo taken by
Nice. What does it show?
He's the guy.
No, what does it show, the image?
The landing.
What do you see? I could just tell you any one of those spots is a landing site. What are you going to say? I mean, you don't see much. Do you know what I'm saying? It doesn't prove nor disprove. It's not clear enough to say what that is, right? It's not clear. I don't see any objects that look like they're definitively a lunar rover. I don't see anything that makes me think that that's what that is, but it could be because it's not that clear. So it's neither proof nor, it doesn't prove or disprove those images, in my opinion.
Well, here's another interesting proof. You have Neil Armstrong said he personally picked up a particular rock, put it in his pocket, and saved it for the Prime Minister of the Netherlands.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Who he gave to, right? And they put it in a hermetically sealed box.
Yeah.
The curator saw my film, says, "Oh, I wonder about that." He, in the middle of the night, they expected no one would open it up. He opens it up, puts the rock under a microscope, and it's petrified wood, kind of this eerie, out of the
Yes.
world looking.
That's a fact.
So unless there are trees growing on Earth, on the moon, then it's a fake. In fact, there's a story that says moon rock is a fake that Neil Armstrong picked up and personally delivered, but no reporter asks. So if the moon rocks are fake, what about the moon mission?
Okay, to steelman that, you would say, what was the chain of custody between Neil Armstrong and this
He
Prime
brought
Minister?
it to
and
him. He personally gave it to him. And he said, "I picked this up off the surface of the moon. This is the rock.
Right.
I remember it. Here you go." They put it in a box. That's not much chain of command to get messed
the
up.
thing is, like, who's got it after that, and is it possible someone stole it, swapped it out with another rock that looked like that? Bullshit. Possible. You have to think it's possible.
I don't think it's possible.
I'm with you. I don't think it's possible. I mean, it seems highly likely that they gave him a fake moon rock, but you have to leave the door open to someone who's involved, who's fraudulent, who knew there was a moon rock there, and some guy said, "Hey man, I'll give you $100,000."
Another interesting point is 6 weeks before they're allegedly going to the moon for the very first time, somehow with that deadline, von Braun, former Nazi, takes a leisurely vacation in Antarctica.
Yeah, that's a fun
where
one.
he picks up, dozens of pounds of lunar meteorites. I wonder what they use those for.
Let's explain that too. That Antarctica is one of the best places to find meteorites, because the fact that it's completely white, it's all frozen snow, and the meteorites will stand out. They'll stand out in the snow.
Yeah, and it hardly ever snows there, so there's not much to cover them up.
Right.
And maybe the orbit being the South Pole, it's more prone to lunar meteorites.
Right. So it's very well known that you can get meteorites in Antarctica, and a lot of them they can conclusively prove come from the moon. Correct? This is all true? Okay. So Werner von Braun maybe needed to know what he was looking at when he got those moon rocks back. And so it's like, well, we have any on Earth? Well, yes, sir, we do. We have some lunar meteorites we can find in Antarctica. Let's take a trip. Didn't he have a broken arm at the time? I believe he did.
There's one picture of him,
He's in a cast.
right after he was captured, where his arm is broken. And I was just talking.
Oh, it's right after he was captured? Because I thought it was in Antarctica that he had a broken arm.
No. It was, he's in his Nazi uniform. And it's
They
right
broke
after
his
he
arm.
got captured and brought over in Operation Paperclip.
That's
I
how
always wondered how he broke his arm. It's like either he was being sassy during an interrogation, or he got bombed and got pulled out of rubble. One of the two.
Could have been he loved Hitler so much he fainted.
Yeah, or maybe he got carpal tunnel syndrome from doing the salute too many times.
So he was a legitimate Nazi, and this is important too, because this is a thing that I know a lot of people have denied. Operation Paperclip was an operation that took place right after the end of World War II, where we acquired a bunch of Nazi scientists that went on to do the Apollo program. Werner von Braun was one of them. The Simon Wiesenthal Center had said while he was alive that if he was alive, they would prosecute him for crimes against humanity. Right? He was a legitimate Nazi. They hung the 5 slowest Jews in the rocket factory in Berlin. So if you walked in, you would see the 5 slowest workers hanging there. And this is eyewitness accounts from people who were in that rocket factory. This is not disputed stuff that he did that. And, you could say he was just a rocket maker. He had nothing to do with that. But he was a Nazi. And
in charge of the
and not just one.
moon thing.
And not just one. But one.
He also said before he died that the government is planning on faking an alien invasion. So the guy who faked the moon landing, he said that. That the next.
What's the evidence of that he said that?
Well, his secretary said so.
Oh, that bitch might be crazy. You never know. She might be doing coke, making stories up. She might be a scammer.
She seems sincere to me.
She might be trying to.
He said they're going to be an asteroid threat next, followed by a fake alien invasion.
That's what he said.
And keep in mind, these Apollo astronauts who spent their whole life lying, saying the moon landings are real, also the key people who are saying you're real. and so is
Well,
Robert.
not the key people,
well,
but Edgar Mitchell was
yeah.
one of them.
And Robert Emenager made films, propaganda films to plant the seed that UFOs are real, and he was at Camden Air Force Base when they faked the moon landing.
Okay, can I assume that then by what you're saying that you don't think UFOs are real at all?
No, they are real, but they're not from outer space.
Okay, what about the ones that Kenneth Arnold saw?
So a lot of people were saying that.
I think UFOs are real, but they're not from outer
think
space.
I really
According to top two UFO research. And I have a book coming out, hopefully in time with this podcast.
loved it. I love shooting. Like, it was not at first I didn't love it, but I kind of found my way into it, and very, very happy with everything. Like, I've done all I can. So, it rings a bell. Sounds vaguely familiar with Turn My Way.
Go to SugarGround.com and
So where do they think they're from? If they're not from outer space.
They're interdimensional.
Again,
And
with the stand.
potentially
Nope.
fallen angels, disguising themselves because they're liars of something like you said can't be proven or disproven from this galaxy 300 light years away.
Ooh, wow. I guess it's sort of like
the spiritual
Pop
element to it.
I got a symptom at the very bottom of it. And yeah, there's a lot of caramel. I got a caramel macchiato.
That's it exactly.
Yeah, the caramel must be stuck at the very bottom of this food.
I mean, the top two UFO researchers said UFOs are real, number one. Number two, they're not from outer space.
Very
number
sweet.
three, they're
I mean, don't get me wrong, I
And
do
that's
have
what
a
I
very,
talked about.
it's very, very sweet at the
We're
bottom of
talking
the
about
coffee.
fallen
But
angels interbreeding.
Yeah. Alright, you guys. Anyway, the arena's over. So we're over 280
And
points.
creating a race called Nephilim, who were men of renown, world leaders.
Could you interpret that as when you say interbreeding with humans? Now, imagine if what they are is a form of artificial intelligence, or I should say, instead of artificial is a word that it's got a lot attached to it already. Maybe
80
digital
points out of
intelligence
76.
or
Secondly,
human-created
down there, Disney Big
intelligence
Shout
that's
to
not of
Ray Remote
biological
Land, 40 by
origin, but
14
it is
points.
a
Overall,
living
very,
thing.
very close.
It's just living in a different kind of
Very,
way.
very close. Let's take a
Now,
look
if
here at the
that
miles, Anthony.
is something that human
doesn't
beings
show our streaks
are
anymore.
eventually
It doesn't show
going
the streaks,
to.
but we both had some
We're going to have some
streaks going
symbiotic
on
relationship
for quite a
with
while, so
electronics
it's good
and
stuff. So,
biological. You're seeing
Alright,
it already
guys.
with Neuralink. You're seeing how this
I
guy
think
is
I'm calling it
paralyzed
Dave right now.
utilized
74 out of
computer
76 in the same. There were a lot of soft pairings. I'm gonna say broadly speaking.
You're
I feel like
seeing
just,
artificial
I don't
intelligence
think
come
it's
to
a
the
problem with
forefront where
players,
people
or it's a
realize
problem
the
with the
power
algorithm,
that
but
it has, how
somehow
quickly it's
the
developed.
bullet brawl just
It's
does not
happened
seem to
very
be very
rapidly
exciting.
within
It feels like there are
years.
too many very soft pairings for everybody at the
When
top, like probably like
better
20 games.
artificial technology comes along and better interfaces come along, and we start realizing the only way
It feels
that
a
we
little
are going
bit
to
soft
survive
as a bullet brawl, but it is what it is.
isn't
So,
that kind
guys,
of the same as something coming
be back
down
to chess on
and
Tuesday. I'm gonna do a little other
If
stuff
these
tomorrow.
things-
Obviously,
if this
actually, I
is
guess
the
before we go, I just want to
this is
say
how
real
it
quick
goes.
thing for all
In
the people out
intelligent
there.
life forms,
Bullet
uncomplicated
balls over
plans,
and everything else.
when they have
But I was gonna say,
complicated
before we go, like obviously I'm
they
mixing it up
develop
a
internal
little bit.
combustion engines,
I am
some other source of
separating my
power,
shrimp. Like
they
there's a
start
reason I'm
manipulating the
separating my
environment,
stream,
and they
which is
eventually
stupid.
get
If
to
you
the
want to
point where
watch
they
them,
can
when I
make
check, I only do
artificial
chess. When you
life
come, you know
and
you're
that
getting
artificial
based
life
on
form
whatever
is far
happens. So
superior intellectually
it's
to the
not
biological
really.
life form.
It's not something where
The
I'm
only way the biological life form can
switch over to
survive
something else.
is
I'm
if it
separating it on
integrates
purpose. So
with the artificial intelligence.
I
And
also
people
would say
start
that
to do it
separately,
initially,
to do
those people
separately,
have access
like
to
I was intending to do
tremendous
this, I've been
resources
intending to do
that
this for a while, but
biological people
unfortunately
don't have,
it's all
and
getting
it'll be
jam-packed
required,
and
just like it's almost
here
required for everyone to have a cell
because
phone.
I had this stupid
Everyone's
tournament
going to
called
integrate.
Guinness, which
In
took up the
case,
first 3.5
over
weeks,
time,
or the first 3
what
weeks
would
of
that look
April.
like?
So
Well,
I
it probably
wasn't
look
really
like
in
aliens.
the
It's
situation I
probably
wanted,
like
but in
some
general, I'm just
weird sort of creature that's not really biological anymore. So it doesn't have all the flaws of our primate DNA. It doesn't have all the, but it doesn't have a soul. Like, are we creating a thing without a soul that has a mandate and has like it has plans for the universe, for life?
means something. What's going
And
on,
with
boys?
that
Don't
kind of
talk
demonic,
about it. Sorry, but
it seems like that's demonic.
fuck.
I mean, if you want to be real simple, all about demons, you think they live in hell and they got pitchforks. But what kind of force would a demonic
Thanks for
force
fucking
be?
balls,
Something that would overpower the human race and render it non-existent. Well, wouldn't it, one way to do that would be to integrate with humans to the point where it makes biological reproduction a thing of the past. All reproduction is done through either some sort of complicated gene splicing program or life and consciousness gets integrated with technology inextricably, so where everybody is some sort of a hybrid system.
Well, there is a spiritual component, including to the moon landing. I mean, you've seen a funny thing happen on the way to the moon.
Right.
It opens up with the Tower of Babel, which was built simply to boast.
तो ऐसे ही भाई का एक फोल्डर बन गया उसमें
And then we
होता है
showed
कि
the
चीट वगैरह इस
Titanic
बंदे ने
that
करी
says
है
the ship
अगर
that God
USB से ये
and
नॉर्मल चीजें करता तो नहीं बनता वैसे इसका फोल्डर बना
Titanic.
बाकी गेम देख वैसे तो लास्ट में
And Richard Nixon, when he knew they were not on the moon, said putting a man on the moon is the greatest event since creation itself.
नहीं
You
मार रहे
see,
थे कहाँ गूगल में
mankind's
बढ़ के
greatest
रेड मार रहे थे
accomplishment
रूम आइडिया
and
सामने
the
भाई
world
तगड़े से
moving
बनते आना देखो जो
forward
सीरियस बनते हो
is
ना
putting
भैया
a man on the moon. And
रूम
oh my
आइडिया
God,
कोई
when I
ऑफलाइन मत
popped
जा
in that tape of the window shot and realized they really did fake the moon landing.
So that was the first one that really cemented it.
Absolutely. It just, I gave them the benefit of the doubt as long as possible.
Okay, I want to go to the flag because the flag is a piece of contentious debate. The flag waving on the surface of the moon. So the moon has almost no atmosphere, correct?
Right.
Okay, and it has 1/6 Earth's gravity. So when you're watching these people plant this flag on the moon is supposedly, it doesn't have any wind, or definitely doesn't have the kind of wind that blows around a flag. Now the flag had a rod at the top of it, and the rod at the top of it kept it in place, and it kept it stiff so it stayed horizontal. And when you
और
watch the
इस
video
जितने
footage,
बंदे आप
the flag is waving around in what looks like a breeze. And so a lot of people have tried to kind of explain it away.
ठीक है
And
जितने
so
भी
you
बंदे
seem
आए
to find a video of the flag itself waving.
Yeah, there's
ठीक है
one.
भाई
So here we go.
गर्ल्स कैरेक्टर
So
रूम
they're
आइडिया
planting the flag.
145367635
You do have to take into consideration that
पासवर्ड
there's
है
very
गाइस
little gravity. So it's 1/6 Earth's gravity. So things definitely in a 1/6 gravity environment, they move
पीसी प्लेयर्स
differently.
नहीं यार
The problem is when the flag
PC
gets
player बनना
ultimately planted
जैसे
and
मोबाइल
then they
प्लेयर
back
वैसे ही
away from it and no one's touching it anymore, then it seems to like independently be
चार
moving
प्लेयर आगे
things.
देख लेते हैं कैसे कैसे
Well, in my opinion, they had a lot of air conditioning pumped in there because the backpacks had the cooling units removed so they wouldn't fall over backwards. So it was very hot in there, and they had lots of air conditioning.
There's better footage, Jamie, where you can just see.
And a funny thing happened on the way to the moon at Sabrel.com. There's a clip of the flag blowing in the wind. We heard that a couple of times.
Here's another thing to take into consideration. This, what you're looking at, is not a direct feed that was offered to the news organizations. So what this is a projector that's projecting on a screen, and then the news organizations then point their camera at that screen, correct?
Well, actually, NASA pointed a camera at the screen. So they took the footage. They put it on a big screen. You got to understand, 1969 projector technology, very low resolution.
Looks like this.
Then they put a camera on it. They ran that to a monitor, and then they had people film the monitor. Right. So it's deliberately fourth generation. So they're intentionally degrading the quality of the signal.
चारों प्लेयर
The network wanted a live feed, and they gave them fourth generation instead.
But this is important to know. Like that wasn't. I mean, if you can get someone on the moon, you can get better footage.
Okay,
In
I
terms
mean,
of like,
Gilligan's Island went to
in terms
color
of what we know
in
in terms of
1965. Why didn't they have color? Right? I mean, this is
Well, even if they don't have color,
NASA.
let's just say it's easier to do it in black and white. Let's just say that. If they did it in black and white, there's no reason why they can't get a clear feed directly to the news organizations and to the television. There's no reason to be filming it on a monitor. There's no reason to do that.
Well, there is, to cover up the fact that it's done in the
But
TV
there's-
studio.
But if you can overcome the technological hurdles to get people to the moon, you can overcome the technological hurdles to allowing people to have clear access, clear footage of what this thing is instead of fourth generation stuff, right?
Yeah, like I said, I think if Gilligan's Island went from black and white to color in 1965, NASA can afford a color camera on the moon. After all, it is the most technologically advanced event. Why wouldn't they want a high-resolution color camera? They didn't because it might show that it's a fake scene, which it was. That's why they degraded the signal by fourth generation.
Do we have better footage of the flag waving around the moon? Because there's some footage of it where you're just like, this is weird.
Yeah, there's some, and a funny thing happened on the way to the moon about halfway through.
We're gonna see that one. Just Google flag blowing in the wind on the moon.
Well, if you Google it, it may not want to show it. So
Did you put it on YouTube as a YouTube search? There's one, Apollo 5.
This one's pretty good. I think
Apollo 15. Click on that one, Jamie. Apollo 15. No, Jamie. Back. Where it says Apollo. No, I said the one that says Apollo 15. Right there. That's it. Yeah. Okay. So this one, this is color. He plants it. It still looks shitty, but he plants it. And let's get a look at it when he gets out of the way. See it moving around. So this is it. So this thing is kind of just waving on its own. No one's even touching it. And it looks like it's waving in a breeze. It stops moving and then it starts moving again. Now, again, there's one
But it
six.
shows it even more so than that.
Yeah.
Like an astronaut walking past it, creating the breeze, and then the flag glows without him touching it.
Yeah, I'd like to do that. So how much further does this go, Jim? So straight ahead. I think this is actually the one where you're going to walk by it. And it starts going in the breeze. Here it goes. Does it show it where he walks by it? There it is. It's back there because you see his image. Where? There he is, right there. Okay. There it is. See that? Yeah. So watch that again, Jim. So this is the one. He hops by, and as he hops by, the breeze makes the flag blow.
Because he's in an air environment.
Right. That is a weird one. Do it again. Look at this. As he hops by, he doesn't touch the flag.
Smash me in the chat, guys. Smash me in the chat.
Yeah, you see that ruining my hair.
Because there's
I'm gonna give it away. Gift card codes. Come on, guys.
What coffee you got?
Is that real?
It's called the Walter
I
White.
thought they were trying.
I was trying to come up with an excuse as to why the moon landings are real. You like that one?
Micrometeor.
Well, actually, Von Braun, we found publications of his. Mind you, my film cost $1 million. It was financed by a board member of an aerospace company who builds rockets for NASA, who knows it's fake, who gave me $1 million to produce these films as his patriotic duty to expose it. We found documentation from Von Braun that says every 24 hours on the moon, there's a 50% chance of a catastrophic, deadly error because of decompression from a micrometeorite. So they were there 3 days. They were 150% chance they would have been killed from a micrometeorite. Grain of sand.
Me, guys, come on, me.
Charlotte's gonna pick a winner from the chat, guys.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave it for a minute and he's,
Mate.
He never did that.
keep putting me in the chat. Just spam me. Don't have to put me about 1,000 times. Just put me.
You need 3 rockets.
Come on, let's
Plane,
do this.
each being
Let's
10
do
times the
this.
tonnage of the Queen Mary, or
Who wants it?
100,000 ships go to the moon. And the Saturn V was 2,500 ships, not 800,000. You have that just right. You douse
Gotta keep spamming me, guys.
I think that came out.
Rothschild streams live 24/7 for world peace. Brother, what the fuck are you
And
on?
now Elon Musk.
They are. Charlotte's picking people. Charlotte, guys, scroll down that chat. Whoever you think is up for the code.
I mean, I closed my eyes.
Yeah.
Okay, we have Blendy B. Bye.
Blended bees is one code, brother. You've won a few codes, man, guys. That is the power of actually spamming me in the chat. Take notes of blended bees. Well, I think a couple codes now, brother. Congratulations. Hopefully. That was big.
Thank you.
I think I've got a really good drop for restoring rails. Look at this.
Got you. But I did close my eyes.
Amaya.
Stop singing that song. It's driving me insane. Stop in my head.
Alright, guys, no, don't worry. You could be next, Jenny. You could be next. What the fuck is this? Gold?
Guys, I haven't brushed my hair today. I haven't brushed my hair today. It's gonna get wild. I don't know what's it doing.
Because you know it's 4 seconds.
Like
It's
stick.
radio waves.
Yeah.
But it'd probably be more than that going through all the catalog.
Oh, not
Right,
really.
but you could time it. You could say.
Not the banana.
So this is it. This is it. So this is launching off through. Watch this. We
was perfectly tilting up with it in real time.
It's just
With the remote control from NASA with the radio delay that I suspect would be more like 12 seconds.
but also
Because today, if you say to someone in Atlanta talking to someone in Iraq, hey, how's it going? 1, 2, 3. Hey, I'm doing fine. That's just on
Yeah, you can
halfway
put
around
time
the
on it.
world.
you can put the panning is interesting, but you could put a timer on it. The thing looking so goofy is so crazy. Like that thing is supposed to get off 1/6 Earth's gravity and fly like that. How? What's it doing? It looks so fucking fake. It looks like it's being pulled by strings. Look, it might be real. I'm certainly not an astronaut. I don't know what I'm talking about. But if you had a guess, if you showed this to me and said, "Hey, do you think this is real or fake?" and you didn't give me any context, I'd be like, "What is this? This cheap science fiction movie? What is this?" And then here it goes, like, that's leaving a planet? How's it leaving? Is that some new space technology? Where's the fire coming out of the bottom of it? How's it doing that? I mean, it just looks fake. It might be real. It might be one of those things that is real but looks fake. Right?
Work it's weird. It's not doesn't say the timer. It says somebody in Houston had to anticipate the timing, ignition left up, which I guess he could have guessed it was going to be in 5 seconds. And just
Could he have guessed?
I have no idea what he was using. I have to look that up.
I guess you could guess if you say, I'm going to launch
Also, they timed
in 5, and so then you count 10. Because he's going to, you got like a 5-second delay. And so when he gets to, like, if he counts down from 10, if he gets to 5, you hit it.
Well, there's a 3-second delay today, halfway around the world with modern equipment, talking from like Atlanta to Iraq.
Right.
3-second delay.
So we'd have fucked it up.
Only halfway around the world with modern equipment.
He
So
has to
going-
say it. So
so
the guy on
going-
the moon has to say, I'm launching now, and he has to wait 5 seconds.
It would be at least a 12-second delay, I think, and possibly more than that. The delay itself with the radio,
Mhm.
light waves there and back, plus all that analog equipment.
But it is not
Slowing it
impossible to do a 12-second delay. It's only 12 seconds. If you had a stopwatch and you counted it and you had a far enough vision where you could see the base of the lunar module, you could see it detach, and then you kind of got it.
That's
as long as you got
stupid.
enough
Don't eat the
field
banana
of
yet.
view
Don't
and the
eat
footage.
the banana.
But boy, it looks fake. It also looks fake. in
You'll
the
get
way
it,
it's
don't
moving
you
up.
worry.
It's
What's
watch
going
it
on?
again, Jamie. This is
Oh.
moving up like it's being pulled by strings.
Well, it looks fake because it is fake.
But most things that look fake are fake. Not all of them, but the vast majority of things that look fake are fake. Now watch how this pulls up. Here it goes.
Oh, look at
It
you.
detaches.
Mate.
Like,
Come on.
what is
This is
that?
where you died last time.
Now here's the question: did they practice
This
this? at
one's
all?
always popping.
Did they practice taking off on one of those things, or could
I
they?
don't think they
Because
did.
they
They
couldn't.
practiced landing.
But here's the question: they
Yeah.
couldn't, right? Because it wouldn't have the same amount of thrust on Earth because the gravity is so much stronger. So that thing wouldn't have been operational on Earth, right?
Well, they had a lunar lander simulation that Neil Armstrong almost got killed in 6 weeks beforehand. He couldn't fly it on Earth in the safety of a tried and true environment. And that was 6 weeks.
Right, but also,
Beforehand.
again, the gravity of Earth is much greater than the gravity of the
Well, they
moon.
took that into account. It was supposed to be a simulation of it. But
So it
the
was more
simulation-
powerful to overcome Earth's gravity in comparison.
Right.
So then you're dealing with a totally different machine. You're dealing with totally different factors. Maybe it would be easy with 1/6 Earth's gravity. Maybe easy, like, wee, boom, it lands. And wee, it takes off.
Apparently it was.
But 1/6, I would like to know, like, how much thrust do you need to get off of the gravity of the moon if it's 1/6 Earth's gravity versus
Never
what it
reached-
takes to get off of Earth? Like, what are those calculations, and how is that amount of force being generated by that thing? And is it? Because that would be a really good question. Because if you can't prove that you could do that, like, how do you do that?
Well, this is one reason why NASA destroyed all the schematics, all the electronics, all the diagrams of the equipment, because you could later prove that the lunar module, so they
Just
claimed
shows
that
up.
the lunar module
I'm hungry, guys. I need my food.
on a bank of car batteries and competed against 250 degrees outside and got it down to a comfortable 72 for 3 or 4 days. I mean, you try that at home, with your car batteries.
Also,
And-
batteries of today, like my
That's right.
Tesla only goes 350 miles if
That's
I
right.
drive real slow.
And so they're saying they powered air conditioning off much more primitive batteries, 24 hours, 3 or 4 days in a row against 250 degree outside. So this is an indirect proof. If you really went to the moon and spent $200 billion, you would never destroy the technology. But one of the clips we have is them saying that they intentionally destroyed all of the equipment to go to the moon. All the diagrams, all the hardware, all the schematics, all the original telemetry of where the rocket was at the time, and all the original videotapes. Ron Howard's grandfather warned him the moon landings were fake. He didn't listen. He wanted to make an IMAX movie. He went to NASA, said, give me all the originals so I could transfer it to HD, and projected at 120 feet wide. They said, give us a couple of days. And in those days, they lost every single original videotape from every single Apollo mission. Now, if you really went to the moon and spent $200 billion, the last thing you would do is destroy that technology. But if you perpetrated a fraud, that's exactly what you would do.
I like. So is this landing? Is that there's Neil Armstrong? So this is the one that he was practicing on that he almost died in. Look at that thing! Wow, that's crazy. So it was a timing thing. So several second delay. Here it goes. The cameras were very successful capturing the images of numerous EVAs, but while they could be controlled from Houston, it was felt that several second delay between Earth and the moon would make capturing the module's ascent impossible. So the plan was to pre-program the camera and hope that NASA camera operator in Houston, Ed Fendel, got his timing just right. On Apollo 15, the tilt mechanism malfunctioned, meaning the camera was never panned upwards, and thus the lunar module rapidly accelerated upwards and out of the picture. On Apollo 16 mission, the astronauts actually parked the rover in the wrong place. While the cameras worked perfectly, it was too close to the module, and again, once it lit up the engines, it accelerated swiftly out of picture. Happily, Apollo 17 got everything right. What is perhaps most remarkable about looking back on it was that no one realized the significance of the liftoff at the time. Persistent rumors suggest that NASA had to pay the networks to cover Apollo 17 mission.
Honestly, guys, I get this
and when
belly
the
button.
final liftoff of humanity from the moon took place, it barely raised a mention on that evening's news reports. That's a really important point, too, because people were really tired of it. Like, they were mad that it was interrupting I Dream of Jeannie.
I Love Lucy.
Oh, that's what it was. I Love Lucy. Yeah.
Well, that's from Wikipedia that continually defends the fake moon landings. In fact, if you type in moon landing fraud, you don't get anything about the fraud. You get 1,000 videos defending, the supposed moon missions. Now, if the moon missions are real, then anyone who says otherwise is an idiot.
Okay, so how did they defend?
If I were going around saying George Washington was not the first president, it was really Mickey Mouse, do you think there'd be 1,000 videos to reassure people that George Washington was the first president, not Mickey Mouse? But there's 1,000 videos out there that took tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of hours to produce.
I have no idea. I honestly couldn't tell you.
So obviously to speak for themselves. It has to be continually supported because it's made out of straw.
They
So the lunar module leaving
the
the
doctors
surface of the
don't know.
moon. How did they practice?
Kind of
Was the first time they ever pulled that off? The first time they ever tried it?
I
Was
think,
that
they
Apollo
used
11?
I think they used a simulation.
But did they do that on the moon?
Well, they couldn't practice. They
Right,
had
so
to do it
Specialists,
the first
though.
time.
Did,
No,
did they have the
Flawlessly every
ability?
single time.
Did they have the ability to land something on the moon and have it
Specialists
take
to
off
see what they
remotely? Did they have that kind of control
I
back
hope
then?
they
No, I don't
just like take some
Probably not,
X-rays.
right? So
and-
if they did, if Apollo 11 did happen
But yeah,
and they did take off, and
I don't
that
know much
time
about
they did it was
arthritis,
the first time
but I always
anybody
thought it
had
was some-
ever tried to use one of those things to get off the surface of the moon. So
worked
they,
every time flawlessly.
with a person in it, with two people in it, three,
They landed
no,
on-
two people in it, one person in the lunar orbiter.
10 landed on. 10 were launched into space. Of those, 6 landed by humans. One of the first 2 were flown test low Earth orbit without a crew and followed up.
Let's talk about the AI discovery. You know about that,
But
right?
hold on, before we get going. So the first 2 were in America,
Dress reversal for the landing was Apollo 10.
and so is there footage of them trying that thing? No, just having it launch on Earth. I'd be fascinated to see what it looks like. How that thing gets into the air. Because if they were able to make a lunar lander that Neil Armstrong got in that thing that looked very different than the ones that were on the moon. But that thing, if he's doing that to try to overcome the 6 times gravity that Earth has over the moon, what does that look like when they're testing that thing? Like, how much thrust does it have? And where's the engine? Where's the rockets that propel that thing into space? Like, where do you fit those? This is my question. And so how did they explain that away? Like, what is the conventional explanation as to how that thing had the amount of power that was required to get off of the moon's gravity, get away from the moon, and fly to Earth?
Well, how did they do it with 1/30,000th of a percent of the fuel that Armstrong said they had to? Why is it today, when we return to the moon, you have to go 9 fuel trips to be able to go to the moon and return, but somehow they did it in 1 trip. Right?
I'm doing okay today. Today's the best I felt in 2 days. So, a week.
Oh, okay.
maybe.
Let's see what they did.
So
So this is
busy,
one they
like,
did on Earth?
caught the crossfire. That's what that was. 5, 4,
Right.
2.
So you certainly could make something. Well, that obviously there's no person in that. That's small. That's different.
That's what I think that video I showed you a second ago of.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But I don't know. Again, I'm trying to find the official.
Let's talk about the AI's latest discovery. That's the latest breaking news.
Okay.
They had an AI conference in November. They have all these conferences, automobile conferences, video equipment conferences, shoe conferences, and they had the latest AI conference in November in Moscow. And just like at these conventions, you can try out a car driving around the track that gets 150 miles a gallon and somehow never makes the market. Well, Google had its most advanced AI, a bunch of AIs hooked up together called the neural network. And they let people play around with it for 3 days. One group had it write a symphony, one group had it write a novel, another group tested its deep fake detection program, which has never been wrong. They can tell you in 1 second of video whether a video is Biden or Trump or deep fake. It's never been wrong. First, they sent a picture from the news
I thought that's right. I was going to get
unmanned Chinese probe 22 years ago. That's very real. And then they said in comparison, pictures from the Apollo mission. And it's absolutely fake for multiple reasons. Fake background, fake foreground. They even pointed out that one picture was not even a real astronaut. The AI detected that the footprints were not the way you would normally walk as with the military. And that the entire set wasn't even real. It was a miniature of the set, so they chose that.
Where's this AI conclusion? Where can someone say that?
Go to Sabrel.com. I wrote an article about it, and there's a video of it of Putin himself being shown the results that the latest AI says the moon landings are fake. And then when I tried to track down the original article, it warned you if you click to proceed, all the data on your computer will be stolen and you'll be associated with child pornography. That
says that?
I have go to Sabrel.com. There's a clip of it. I did a screenshot. It says that. That's how desperate they are. Because the latest AI says the moon landings are fake. You think that story is on RT? The president was there. It's nowhere to be found.
Does the latest AI look at that Apollo 17 lunar module taken off?
Well, I don't know that they showed it that footage, but they showed it still pictures from the Apollo mission, and they showed it still pictures from the surface of the moon from the unmanned Chinese probes. It says the Chinese probe pictures are real, the Apollo pictures are fake. The smartest AI in the world with a deep fake detection program that's never been.
How is that not public? How is that not major news?
Exactly, right? Why is it that Fox News cancels their #1 program if they're in the business to make money? We had the former director of the Russian Space Agency a little over a year ago. He said the moon missions were fake. Fox News calls me up the next day. They said, Bart, we want to do an hour-long special about whether the moon landings are real or not. And we just want to be honest with you. We haven't read your book. We haven't seen your film. And irregardless of what's in there, we will conclude that the moon missions are real. The point is to reassure the public. And then, during that hour-long program, which I saw after the fact, they had a quote from one scientist in 1969 that said, "Congratulations," and therefore they said, "See, the Russians think it's real." And I'm like, well, what about the former director of the Russian space program who said 6 weeks ago that it was fake? They deliberately don't mention that. You think RT is
Who
out
said it
of
was fake? Which guy?
well, the former director of the
Is my
Russian
timing
space station.
off? Why
Who's-
was my hot
His
strap
name
off?
is Dmitry Rothschild, and he said that the Apollo
Can't seem
visit
to. Really? Both of them?
and Fox News called me up. They
I
had
can't seem
put
to
out
keep on my
that
hot right now.
You see that? And they said we will conclude without investigation.
Well, I have
without
another
movie book, and even if your
hours.
book and movie prove that it was fake, you're still going to conclude that
So you
it's
can't stand on
Fox.
and
Your
then
network.
They're both
well,
range,
yeah, and then
too.
are they really
I don't know why
anti-corruption? No, they're not. And there it is right there. Listen,
It's the neural network thinks almost everything is photos fake. Meanwhile, back up again. It's the neural network thinks almost everything in this photo is fake, and it's the moon landing thing. So meanwhile, it raises no particular questions about this photo taken by a Chinese lunar rover. So this is someone explaining this to Putin, and they're looking at it. It believes this one is fake. He's pointing to the Apollo. Yes, look at the red. This is what Google's neural network thinks, not ours. So there will be no bias. But it's surprising, but it does believe so.
Hold on. I'm sorry, guys.
The neural network has
Can someone
analyzed
go
a
into
lot of
Discord
data,
and
including
see
light and dark contrast, etc.,
remove or
and
something?
then it believes the photo is synthetic.
I am so confused
Now,
right now.
he's not surprised, so he knows already that it's fake. Let me tell you something, Joe.
Sorry, guys.
I
I'll get
know
it after
somebody
this.
who
Well,
works
he's
for
not
the
all of
Chinese
that,
space
honestly.
Okay? I just did an interview with him for my YouTube channel. And he says everybody there knows that the Apollo missions are fake.
So why don't they like publicly broadcast
So
it?
they tell exactly why. He says they're blackmailing NASA. NASA is giving them illegally, according to the own federal law, secret space technology in exchange for China not going to listen. And that's the alleged reason why it must be real. The Russians would have found out, and the Chinese would have found out, they would have blown it. That was not true. Let's say I had a picture of a world leader with a prostitute. I could upload it to the internet and take them down, and then that would be it. Or I could blackmail them year after year. And that's what I have sourced in the command center of the space station at China Space Agency. He says that no, everyone knows it's fake. They're blackmailing NASA for technology. So the federal government is violating their own espionage act. You see that? Russia does. The guy's not surprised at all. In fact, my interpretation of his emotion, he's afraid. He looks afraid.
And, oh, it's just the same one guy?
No, you see, and then RT doesn't cover that.
Sorry,
story.
everybody.
They don't cover it. And I saw another AI story on RT, so I went in the comment section. And I leave about 2 or 3 comments a year on there. I've never had one taken down in 3 or 4 or 5 years. I leave a comment, hey guys, why didn't you cover that the latest AI, where Putin was there, says that the moon missions are fake? They
What?
took
What's
down
happening?
the
Where's my...
They won't let you go to the original link. You see, Fox News is covering up for the federal government. You see, it's a great
all that
embarrassment.
does
I
is
showed
just
that
block
footage that
it?
we
No, I
talked
was
about
hoping it would
quite
time
a
them
while
out or ban them.
to a news director at NBC. He practically fainted. He says it absolutely proves they
It
didn't
just
go
puts
to the
asterisks. That's not helpful. Asterisks.
I don't want to go down in history as the man who caused the next civil war. He said this will help me out.
Yo, Dom.
A new director at NBC News.
How are you?
Sees the footage.
I usually, like, there's these people that come in
Oh,
here and
cool.
do stuff like that when I'm on the front page, but oh, I guess it's Saturday. I was like, it's not usually this bad. They usually come in and then they abandon them. This is just like the worst time because I'm fucking busy. I'm so super.
They're talking about me. I love it.
Look at my DPIs and I can just like fix this.
So people see that footage, it convinced me. And I was
After I do
a
this, people are like,
you know, pride is a thing. Here's something I wanted to say. I talked to a guy who teaches aerospace at a major university. He said, even if he saw Buzz
There, try
Aldrin
that.
confessed on national TV that the moon missions were fake. He was definitely. Pride is simply the unwillingness to be wrong. And humility is the willingness to be wrong. I was willing to be wrong. It is what it is. They did fake the moon landing. Our government is that corrupt.
Okay, let's go over some other stuff. One thing I wanted to go over is the photographs and the shadows that are moving at different angles. Because this has been disputed and this has been refuted by some people that are photographic experts. They've looked at this and said this is actually possible to get these kind of different angles even with natural sunlight. It's debatable though. So let's talk about it.
So here we have on the right-hand side pictures taken from the right last mission to the moon. You'll see on the left-hand side is sunlight. Try it yourself. Go out in your front yard or your parking lot at work on a cloudless day. 2 people, 2 telephone poles, 2 trees. They will always run parallel. They will never intersect. It's impossible for sunlight shadows to intersect. Over here on the right, they claimed was taken in sunlight. After all, there's no atmosphere. It's 20 times brighter on the moon than on Earth. The last thing you need is an electrical light. And the astronaut shadow is going at 12 o'clock, and a rock 5 feet away. The shadow is going at 9 o'clock. A 90-degree intersection, proving that was taken with an electrical light really close, and it's probably behind the astronaut. And if you go to the right of it, it's going to throw the angle off. That proves it in a court of law. Take a jury out, they'll see the picture on the left, turn off the lights in the courtroom, bring in a spotlight, and you will prove in a court of law that picture was taken with an electrical light, which proves they are on Earth and not on the moon.
Now,
I guess
what is
he,
the
like,
conventional
took his-
explanation as to
I don't know
why
what
these
happened.
shadows move in different
It looks like he
When
took
people
his
try to
gloves off,
debunk it, I'm sure you've
fight,
seen them try to debunk
and it
it.
got dog
What is
piled,
their...
and then somebody
I've
stepped
never
on
heard it
his
before,
hand.
to tell you the truth. They've ignored it. In fact, the
So it was like,
reporter
it was
from
fake. It was,
National was it, Mechanical Magazine, Popular Mechanics
it
interviewed
was
me.
so gross.
And they said, I can't explain it. I talked to the Washington Post about the footage we showed. He was doing a story about, isn't it interesting, on the 30th anniversary, some people doubt the moon landing. And I said, well, what about that footage? And he says, well, it looks to me like they didn't
This is
go
not
to
going
the
to be
moon.
easy with a
And I
guy.
said, well, why don't you do a story about that? He says, if I did that, I would be fired. That's the Washington Post.
Okay. Jamie, what are your thoughts?
Out of the gate,
Yeah.
looking at this photo, I go, sun's behind him.
Well, what about the one side by side? What's
Yeah,
your opinion of that one,
This
Jimmy?
photo was not as interesting.
This is
That's one.
Go to
it
the
is
side
clear-
by side one. What's your opinion of that? Sunlight on the left, electrical lighting on the right.
well, why does that be electrical?
Sure. Well, let's take a look at the image.
I'm trying to pull it back up. But
There's well, my book, which is interactive, has 17
Here it is.
clips. One of the clips, if you want to find it, is National Geographic did a special just to refute my film. And what they did was, and you can find that clip, it's under Sabrel.com, Moonlight Video Clip. And they go to a desert at night. They dress up an actor in an astronaut costume. They bring out a spotlight. And they have people stand next to the astronaut, and the shadows intersect. And you know what they say, Joe? They say that proves that the moon missions are real. And I said, well, wait a minute. It proves that they were taken by electrical light. Why didn't you go out to a desert during the day, during sunlight? You see, they brought in a spotlight. The shadows diverged, and they said it proves that the moon landings are real.
That's a light that's a closed source, right?
Yeah, but my point is, what they actually did is they proved that the moon missions were taken with an electrical light. Because they, what's that?
if you take photos in the desert during the day, the entire sky is bright. You have to block out a lot of light.
Well, it doesn't matter. The shadows are still going to run parallel. It doesn't matter.
It does matter. That's what I was trying to get up before I cut off. Is that from this photo here, which is very similar to the other photo, it looks like the sun is probably behind it. It's probably the brightest source that they have around them.
Mm-hmm.
You've already admitted that without adding extra laser reflectors, that the moon surface is reflective.
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be reflection off of that. And you're going to probably have the Earth, which is also now a second source of light, coming from a different angle that the sun is, to create potentially without knowing exactly everything. So I'm not a mad scientist to know where the sun is, or the sun and Earth are at this particular time of day. They could create different shadows.
Well, not really, because the sun.
Well, why not?
Well, I'll tell you why. Because the sun is 1,000,000 times bigger in volume than the Earth, and that would be like on a bright, sunny day at noon, shining a flashlight on the ground. Do you think you're going to see?
You can take pictures in here with multiple light sources, though, and they're going to look.
Right,
wait a minute.
The difference in the amount of light that gets emitted by the Earth and the amount of light that gets emitted by the sun is substantial.
100%.
Right, that would be like shining a flashlight on the ground at high noon on a cloudy day.
I really
You're not
need
gonna
a
see the beam
beach.
of the
I need
sunlight.
The thing is,
And the surface, take it from a filmmaker, that's called reflective light. It's not gonna cast a distinctive shadow.
yes, but here's my point. It's still that rock on the upper right-hand corner, even if it was getting light from the Earth that made that shadow that underneath it to the left that goes in the wrong direction, you would still get the same kind of shadow that you get off the astronaut behind the rock. There's no reason why that would blast out that shadow. That shadow would be significantly stronger.
All right,
Of course.
This is the reason I wanted
Now
to
that
do a
I
different
am
photo,
not
because
doing
that's the
everything,
reason I
just
wanted to drop on it. I wanted to try a different photo.
Well, this one is not
It was just
nearly as
like
convincing.
the worst timing.
It has shadows going in different
I was
directions
so
all
busy.
over the place.
And that's because it's taken with
So
electrical light.
Well, it does seem that they're going in different directions. Right. Well, Apollo 11, they're saying was taken with electrical light, Jamie. What are you saying?
No, he's
Yeah,
saying
there's-
from electrical light.
that
I'm
spam
pointing
is
here
the
right now.
worst,
Look, the
where it's just
sunlight
people,
behind the guy's head.
trying to get you to follow
Right over here on
another
the left.
channel. Nobody
Shadow
clicks on
coming to the
this.
right.
I
Over
guarantee
here
you,
on
not
the
a
right.
single time
Who says it's
has anyone
sunlight?
sat in a
But
chat
Jamie,
and been
but
like,
Jamie,
that's
if
your
you had
assumption.
if you had electrical light
If it was
above,
sunlight, the
he's
shadows would be
spamming other
parallel.
people's
That's
chat all the
actually
time.
proving it's an electrical light because sunlight is parallel.
yeah, but hold on, Jamie, don't stop.
You guys are fighting against the things that I'm saying as a
Whatever,
photographer,
you know.
as a filmmaker, and like
We're not
But
fighting
you're
against anyone.
assuming it's sunlight.
I said, it could be 4 different lights.
It was
Also
the one
could be
time
reflector of
neither-
the actual
yeah,
lunar
there was no
lander.
movement
That thing is made of giant shiny metal. It has also light reflecting in multiple
was-
ways.
Where's the lunar lander
Probably
though in
behind
relation?
him.
Just
Me.
silly
We
time.
don't,
We don't
that's
know.
my
That's
thing.
part of
I
the
don't know where all the light sources are. I wasn't there.
Right, that's part of the problem with analyzing each
He had an
individual short
influx
little
of
photograph like this.
spam
But if I'm looking at this, I see one very distinct
There.
shadow. That's
So
coming
here's
from the
the
person.
one in the bottom.
Oh, yeah, I
right
was
there.
saying,
That
like-
shows shadows at two
Like,
different angles.
nobody
That's
ever
kind of crazy.
That means
would
no
look at
electrical
that
light.
spam and be like, oh,
Well,
I'm watching
because
that
I
guy.
just
That
showed you what
sounds
the
great.
picture looked like. It's fine.
He seems really
There's lots of
cool.
light sources.
That's true.
It's
I
so
know.
cool.
It's true,
Other
but there's
channels
also
and
hot
spam
They
stuff.
either filmed it on the moon
Make
or they
a million
filmed it on
accounts,
Earth.
dude.
And that's where
If
I
it's on the moon,
And he keeps
the
coming and
shadows
posting
are
it here.
parallel in sunlight.
No one's gonna,
The shadows
like, go,
intersect.
you have to go to a
It's an
different
electrical
channel.
light.
Nobody hears.
They're actually on Earth.
And they're trying to figure
So
it out.
what you're saying is that if it's electrical
Lindsay, you're
light,
very
it's
funny,
more than one
and I love
source
you.
of light that they have like suspended. And so
They
these
should
are going
get
to
a beach,
cast
like
light
a
in
beach.
different directions, and it's going to create shadows that come at different angles, as opposed to the
So
enormous
you're
sun,
working out.
which bathes everything in a fairly
You can
even
work out
distribution.
in
Yeah,
here
if there's
by
two light
swinging
sources,
your fan
like two electrical lights, they run in different directions.
Right.
Or if there's one light, because it's close. The sun is 93
Right.
million miles away. That electrical light is probably like 10 feet away. So if you're behind it, it's going to cast a shadow, or in front of it, it's going to cast a shadow straight ahead. And if you're to the side of it, it's going to cast an angle and the light in a different angle and the shadow at a different angle.
Okay, and so this one is just normal.
I mean, look at this picture on the right. This is the most famous picture.
Um,
Get the original off of eBay. They color corrected this. The soil and the original picture around his feet is caramel brown. Look at the pictures from the Chinese probes that the AI said was real. It was a caramel brown color. And they had the background grayish blue. And they said, oops, we can see the fake background too easily. So they color corrected them. Go to eBay, go to your library, find a publication from 1970, and you'll see, and all the lunar pictures, the originals from, there's one there. There's the brown one there. Go back. There was one picture of the original print of the soil being brown right there. That's the color. All that set of pictures that I had, those 20 pictures I got from my dad, all of them had the soil that color, including the famous one of Buzz Aldrin, right? They all had a caramel brown, and in the Chinese probes, the soil is caramel brown because that's the color it really is.
Right,
They
but
color corrected that.
if you landed a probe in the desert in California versus you landed a probe in the middle of Austin in rainy season, you're going to get different ground, different color ground, right? Wouldn't we assume that the moon, when we look at the moon, there's a bunch of different shades of the moon, right? That's the man moon.
Well, and all the NASA pictures and the original prints, they're all the same shade.
Right, because they're in that spot where it's that color.
But you have to see there's a before and after of that same picture.
Okay, that was it.
The original picture, we have to find it on eBay or whatever. The original picture.
Don't you think it's online?
Could be, but you'd have to go to eBay and type in Apollo 11
Well, everybody knows
photographs.
eBay is the most trusted source of information. There's no way.
What we need is the original prints that came out in 1969. And those
exist,
And those, the soil is brown, and yet in this most recent picture, they've color corrected it.
Now, why do you think they did that?
Because the soil was brown, and the background was grayish blue, and they didn't match. And you could see the fake backdrop so much easier.
Now, there's another point of contention that the same background was used in different photographs that were supposed to be nowhere near each other.
That's true. That is true.
Okay, and what's the instances of that you could show?
Well, I don't have them queued up, but that proves that they're.
You must know what they are, though, right?
Well, I've seen them before. Other people that put them in films, and it's true that they claim they're in two different locations, but the backgrounds line up exactly on top of one another. So
yeah, it's supposedly many miles apart, but yet the backgrounds look the same.
yeah, the AI said the picture they had of an astronaut on this vast background was a miniature. It wasn't even a real astronaut.
Yeah, I want to see more of that. And that was it actually Google's AI that did
It
that?
was Google's neural network.
And
The most advanced. So either Google spent billions of dollars and 10 years or more developing this AI that ended up being a piece of junk, or moon landings were fake. You see? Which do you think is true?
Well, or the photographs are fake. This brings me back to the thing that I was saying earlier, that if they did, look, the Hasselblad cameras that they use to photograph things in the moon, one of the things that people would always say is, oh, they were special cameras. They were different. They protected against radiation. They did a bunch of things. They could operate under the incredible temperature of the moon. But they were the same cameras, right? They weren't really special cameras.
Right. Someone sent me a link recently. They have, according to Eugene Cernan, he left a picture, a family picture, there on the surface of the moon. And he took a picture of the photograph that he left on the surface of the moon. And then someone said, okay, at what temperature does photographic print paper, Kodak paper from that time, at what temperature is it destroyed? Something like 145 degrees. Well, that's 100 degrees hotter than that on the moon, and the picture looks perfectly fine.
Right, but how long does it take before the
it's to be immediately. Yeah. And so the AI said that. And then it says, okay, well, is this a picture of Kodak film on the moon? It says, yes, it's supposed to be. But how can it be there just leisurely laying around when it's 100 degrees hotter than what it would cause it to destroy it?
What was different about the cameras that were used on the moon, and what protection was in place supposedly to protect them from radiation and temperature?
Nothing. When my film came out, and that's about the time that you and I met for the first time.
Here it goes. Hasselblad engineers gave it a coat of heat-resistant aluminum paint and removed the mirror and focus screen to save weight and allow the camera to be operated close to the head as opposed to the waist. To aid in the photo composition, they attached a bracket used for mounting camera accessories called a cold shoe to the side. It also held the astronauts' checklist while they were on the lunar surface. Inside the camera, highly precise motors allowed astronauts to scroll through a roll of film without using a hard crank. Rise knew that recreating the perfect replica of the Apollo 11 Hasselblad camera was going to be more difficult simply because there wasn't much accurate information available about it. Right.
Okay, but the most significant part of it, when my film came out, Fox was going to air it as it. And right beforehand, there's lawyers that reached out and said, well, we didn't show the story. My argument was huge during the break. We've heard their side of the story for decades. We're trying to give us. But wait a minute, wait a second. So They made a special where they interviewed him. This conspiracy theory did we go to the work? Aired 3 times by popular demand. One of the most convincing parts is they interviewed the representative from House of Black cameras. They show him a picture of allegedly a guy on the surface of the moon in sunlight, and he's embarrassed as why it looks like that. It looks like he's standing under an electrical spotlight. It's also because of the hot spotlight. That's right. So the guy who made the camera says that pretty much that the pictures are fake. He doesn't know why. It looks like an electrical light is not the sun.
And again, that could be because it was almost impossible to recreate those photos, to create those photos.
Well, they showed simulations so many times during the 1969 television pictures. You know, they didn't have that much actual footage. I don't think they would have a problem saying, well, we just, destroyed the pictures. All we have is a TV image.
It is really, really crazy. They destroyed all the original footage.
If I really went to the moon, or I was in charge of a mission that really went to the moon, and someone said, well, we got to put in fake pictures, I'm like, no, because people are already saying the moon missions are fake. I would never allow fake footage to be shown in a real mission. If they really went, it would jeopardize the credibility of it. It would never.
If you have say, but also you have to take into consideration the people that back then there was no VCRs. They would air this once, and in their mind that would be it. No one anticipated VCRs, no one anticipated DVDs, and certainly no one anticipated the internet. No one anticipated podcasts. No one anticipated YouTube videos. No one anticipated someone being able to analyze and look at these things. No one anticipated AI being able to look at the images and determine the thing.
I haven't heard your devil's advocate excuse yet, Joe, for why they intentionally destroyed a $200 billion investment.
That doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense to me why they would destroy the footage. It doesn't make any sense to me why they would not have the telemetry data. It doesn't make any sense to me. I can't think of a reason why other than gross incompetence.
No, they said they intentionally destroyed it, not accidentally. If there was any technology you might intentionally destroy, maybe the atomic bomb after World War II. We used it to end the war, now let's just destroy it. Well, the point is,
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. 10 years later, it's 1,000 times more powerful.
Right.
So why would they destroy that technology unless they're covering their tracks?
Now, one of the things about this is that this subject is connected instantaneously with idiocy. If you believe the moon landings are fake, you are a moron. And it's something that is pushed heavily, especially by people that only have a cursory understanding of the moon landing itself. And their argument is it would actually be more difficult to fake the moon landing than it would be to actually go.
Well, that's not true. The film The Martian, shot on location in Mars.
Well, that was much later.
Well, but the point is,
you know what I'm saying? When 1969
that saying Occam's razor that the simplest explanation is true is true, but they've got it backwards. The film The Martian wasn't shot on location on Mars. It was done in a TV studio. It's easier to fake a moon mission than it is to go towards the moon, obviously. And yet they're so desperate to say that the moon landings are real. They say it upside down. They say it's easier to go than to fake it.
Well, they say it's easier to go than to fake it and keep it secret all these years.
They did. Only a handful of people knew the truth. Right? The guy in the command center can't tell the difference between a real flag and a fake. Right? There's only 3 eyewitnesses and no independent press coverage.
Everything's compartmentalized.
Yeah. So they did fake it. We have the fact that you can't have 1,000 times greater technology in the past than in the future, right? We have the footage of them faking being halfway to the moon. We have shadows intersecting at 90 degrees, which can only be done with electrical light. And we have an eyewitness that Cyrus using. And then there's another clip. I think it's clip 7, James. I interviewed Edgar Mitchell in his house for my second follow-up film, Astronauts Gone Wild. I showed him the fake footage that we just looked at. He turned beat red, got mad. Where did you get this? Get out of my house. Started cursing us. Kicked me from behind. And in the commotion, we left a high-quality wireless microphone. while the camera is in the back seat of the rental car in the guy's driveway, he's in his house with the door closed, and we're recording his private conversation with his son. And you'll hear them say, "You want to call the CIA?" Now, if they really went to the moon, and I'm some idiot who thinks it was done in a TV studio, why would they care? Why would the CIA care? And why would a civilian Apollo astronaut have the CIA in his Rolodex? You see, that's interesting that they didn't do it. Why would they be talking about having been killed by the CIA if they really went? As a silly person who thinks they think. You see, let's hear that. Yeah, recorded? Yeah. I gave him the time code there. And then so my book goes into all these things that are not in the film.
So here's you climbing into the car.
And there it is.
So that's the son saying that.
That's right.
Okay. How old is the son at the time?
Well, he was about, I guess, 23 years old.
Okay, but 23-year-olds are young.
Well,
You get a 23-year-old kid, they're dumbass, they're mad, their dad just got punked. You know, the whole thing's happening, dad kicks this guy, fuck this guy, want to call CIA,
Well,
whack.
I don't know if you read the book. One chapter is called "A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to CNN." Okay, when I found that tape of them faking part of the moon mission in my home studio, and I just quietly wept, "Oh my gosh, they really did fake it." I freaked out. Like, oh my gosh, I have proof that the moon landings are fake in my house with a blind roommate and a toddler son. I'm panicking. I call up Bill Casey. I'm like, "Bill, you're not going to believe what I found. They really didn't go to the moon. They really didn't go to the moon." And he's like, "Well, Bart, I told you." I'm like, "No, you don't understand. They really didn't go." He's like, "Well, Bart, I told you." And as I'm telling him about the footage, it's interrupted by this scream. I can't hear him. He can't hear me. I go to church that night to get advice from the elders what to do. They say, "Drive like a bat out of hell." To CNN. I already made a copy of it and put it in safe house. As I'm leaving church, one of the last cars, late at night, a van backed into a swimming pool that had been closed for 3 hours since sundown. Pulls out immediately when I go by. I'm like, "I've been waiting for it." I pull over to the side of the road and say, "I'm not going anywhere." Finally, he realizes he got caught. He passed me. I followed him. So he gets on the parkway going for town. I get in the parkway going for town. I'm like, "I'm going to see this guy. Who is this guy? Waiting to follow me." The thing I find to see. I look at him in the eye. It looks like a great white shark will kill me. Go home and have a great dinner. I was thinking about it tomorrow. As soon as we connect, the car shuts off. Electric, engine, everything shuts off. He meets up with another.
What years?
This is 1999. I had a Toyota van. And he meets up with another car on the other side. They start literally looping around as I'm running from side to side. I flag down a cab. He takes me to CNN in Atlanta, where I have a friend who works there. And I'm literally trying to give them the tape through the back door. It's all in my book. They didn't make a great movie something. And I'm abducted by government agents in an unmarked white van who handcuffed me. And I could hear them behind me say, "Well, where's the thing?" I thought, "You have the thing. He's got the thing." They're all wearing rubber gloves. They put something on my wrist that looks like something you get in the military hospital. And within 1 minute, I feel like I'm on LSD. To the point where I'm throwing up. That's the thing, you see. They put me in a van. They start interrogating me. I escaped the custody. Try to read the book. It's a long story. I make my way back to Nashville. I pee in a cup. I'm going to show my news director that he sees that I've been dragged by this exotic consumer because I told them everything they wanted. I don't have to waterboard it. Okay. And I take it to a lab. I give it to a friend to put in the lab at his trying to outwit the CIA, right?
Right.
I check back with him a few days later, says, "Bart, well, there was a problem at the lab." I'm like, "Well, what problem?" He says, "Well, I had a break-in over the weekend. Oh my God, so what? He says, well, funny thing, the only thing stolen was a urine sample. The people at the lab are like, I don't know who you are, but take your business elsewhere. And so all of this is in my book. Never talked about it before because I'm already trying to convince people of this very difficult truth. They really did take the win.
And how do you know these folks?
Well, they're the ones who monitored my phones, who followed me from church, who followed me to CNN, who stopped me from getting the tape there, who drugged me to something so severe I was throwing up and hallucinating. And then they're so afraid that I'm going to prove that I was drugged, they break into the lab. In the middle of the night, they take the only thing stolen was my drink set. Gone the next day. Again, what year was it? That was 1999. Yeah. Truth? You're allergic to truth?
No, I'm allergic to whatever's in the air in Austin. But we were talking about before the show.
Alfalfa tablets help me out a lot. You gotta take like 4 or 5 a day.
So this is 1999, and this is when you first get a hold of that footage.
That's right.
Australia. And did they ask you where you got it? Do you remember anything they asked you?
I remember like the first 2 questions. I was really concerned about the safety of my son. I always think, what would I do if I were them?
Right.
And so I was concerned that they would kidnap him and say, we'll give you him if you give us the tape.
Right.
So the very first question out of their mouth, I remember, where's your son? Very first question. And then the next question, something about copies of the tape, and I don't remember. And, literally, in the middle of the night, running away from these people, X-Files type of things that, make a movie someday about. And it's just unreal what I went through. And they really did know. They're still keeping up with it. You got to remember what's his name, Ralph Nader. He wrote that book, which was Deadly at Any Speed. And all it was is GM simply didn't want to spend $200 per car to put in the airbags. You know what they did? When Ralph Nader was trying to get into it.
I love that whole this is like, I don't know anybody who would just go into a chat and spam and then be like, hey, I want to join that person. That's just a fabulous. I love watching.
And now, in my book that just came out,
I love sound
we have an
logic.
eyewitness who says he saw them.
Sound logic to
They
me
could
is
have
just
said
like,
again and
what
ever,
gas
and even admitted to killing
Okay, let's go over some of the things that people would say.
yo, dog.
Let's go over specifically the Van Allen radiation dose. So what is the explanation, the official explanation as to how the astronauts were able to get
Oh,
the
the block.
Van Allen radiation dose
Ooh,
safely?
fuck.
Because I know that people have disputed this, and it is something that people talk about all the time because it's the number one thing.
Well, they're contradicting themselves because we just showed Kelly Smith, who said the field of radiation is dangerous, that we need to develop shielding before we send people to this region of space. So the shielding to send people through it so they don't die has not been invented as of 2014. No, he said people.
No.
We must develop this technology before we send people.
I was agreeing with that, but so the instruments don't break, so the ship doesn't.
Well, that too.
Which will then harm the people.
Right, but that was what we were talking about.
I hate this
But
shit.
You just like a lump, like you got hypnotized, bro. Hypnosis, all of that, bro. We just like fucking diluted. Did not know what the fuck was happening, bro. It's unfortunate. No doubt lyric for sure, bro.
We must first solve these challenges.
Oh, look, Flacco, what are you doing, my man?
Send people to this region of space.
Bro, why did that snake not get banned? Stella did get banned, and it's very obvious that she only plays this game to literally deathmatch and RWT.
The idea is that they did solve them, and then that technology was lost, and they have to recreate it, and they haven't done that.
Really, they invented the automobile and threw it in the ocean, and now they're having to reinvent the
For
automobile.
profits, right? It's odd, and when she runs out of GP, where do you think she gets the GP from? She buys it, obviously. That RuneScape is just fucking retarded because they don't care enough. But I mean, let her do whatever the fuck she wants, bro.
We're all
I'm surprised that she still pulls like fucking like sometimes 100 viewers. That blows my mind.
Very suspicious. like mostly suspicious. Like not a lot of it makes sense. Just logically, if you look at the timeline between 1969 and 2024 and the amount of progress that has taken place in actual outside of Earth's orbit space travel, it's non-existent by human beings. Another question is, did they ever manage to get anything alive through the Van Allen radiation belts and have it come back to Earth before they tried it out with people? Did they do it with a monkey? Did they do it with a chicken? Did they send anything into space and have it come back alive?
Not officially. They may have done it unofficially and not reported it just because the outcome was not good.
Right. When they did Operation Starfish Prime and they blew that thing up, didn't it make the Van Allen radiation belts worse in that spot?
That's what I heard, that it added to the radiation there.
Here it says, some people believe that the Apollo moon missions were a hoax because astronauts would have been instantly killed in the radiation belts. According to the U.S. Occupational Safety and Health Agency, OSHA, a lethal radiation dosage is 300 rads in 1 hour. What is your answer to the moon landing hoax believers? Okay, total dosage for the trip is only 16 rad in 68.1 minutes, because 68.1 minutes is equal to 1.13 hours. His is equal to a dosage of 16 rad in 1.13 hours equals 14 rad in 1 hour, which is below the 300 rads in 1 hour that is considered to be lethal. Also, this radiation exposure would be for an astronaut outside the spacecraft during the transit through the belts. The radiation shielding inside the spacecraft cuts down the 14 rads per hour exposure. So that
yes, I told Chad that I would do it once we get the fucking.
Well, I have a clip at Stabrel.com where they talk about it to show them the night.
Once we get the enhanced weapon series. When I introduced you to my friend Mo, and when you mentioned your brother calling him fat, he thought you were talking about him.
The amount of radiation in the Van Allen radiation.
Well, let me get you and Stella on Top Tuesday at the same time. Oh my fucking Rob. If you could somehow get Stella to go do Top with me, I will 100% do that. How funny would that be, her trying to do Kessler and Blow and fucking Maiden? Oh my god. I'm like, hey Stella, how you doing? How's the death match is going?
Yeah, that's a good question. Why don't you Google?
How's Shrine nowadays? Have you heard from him since?
There's a clip from my book.
I love how you're doing. Shit, I gotta set. You just get.
Right. There's a clip from my book at Sabrel.com.
Yeah, good ass idea, Joe.
The radiation.
The YouTube video could be called. I took the person that tried canceling me, the TOB. Some shit like that. I gotta farm a video off that now. What an idea. I became the new Trident for Stella. Damn. Gotta hit Stella for that, bro. 100%. I gotta be careful though, not lower any items, because she definitely scammed my ass. Otters off, my fucking man. Sounds like Aspen Gold. Otter Block wins again. Yo, Otters off. Thank you so much for the 10 gifted you gentlemen. That is a lot of fucking subs. I appreciate that, my brother man. The only thing that sucks about your idea, Cousin Joe, is
located at 4.0. The distance of 2.2 is a gap.
If we're doing a free for all, we gotta hope Stella doesn't get the purple, because we all know where that purple's going, bro. She ain't splitting shit. Exactly what Corky said, bro.
So there's a gap in between the two belts. It says the International Space Station and Space Shuttle on this scale orbit very near the edge of the blue Earth disk in the figure, so are well below the Van Allen radiation belts. So most of the space stations, space shuttle travel, all that stuff is in that area.
Well, it's below. They're at 250 miles. The radiation begins at 1,000 miles.
Right.
I think in 1996, the space shuttle went up to 365 miles, one of its highest altitudes. CNN reported this word for word. The radiation belt surrounding the Earth is more dangerous than previously believed. So how is it that astronauts 600 miles away from it know more about it than astronauts that allegedly went through it to the moon and back? You see that? That's not possible. We have article after article that says that the radiation belts are an obstacle to going to the moon. We have George Bush Jr. saying we're going to return to the moon in 10 years. Of course, he said that 20 years ago. And he says, but first, we need to learn how to protect the astronauts from radiation. Why not do it the way that worked so well on the Apollo missions?
So, what kind of protection how thick was the aluminum shielding?
1/8 of an inch.
1/8 of an inch. And was there anything, a coating on the inside of it that protected them further?
No, just 1/8 of an inch of aluminum.
And how much of protection would 1/8 of inch of aluminum provide?
Well, half as much as a dental X-ray, lead vest, or less than that.
But they would experience much more radiation than that.
That's right.
Now, if this is saying that it's well below the lethal threshold, is there anything that disputes that? Is there anything that you can point to that shows that the Van Allen radiation belts are significantly more powerful than what they're saying? Like this article that you said was from CNN from the 365-mile trip. Let's find that.
That's in the film. Belts. That's in the film. A funny thing happened on the way to the moon.
Right, I've read that.
Just look for that part in the film that shows the animation of the Van Allen radiation belt. And then those book clips that I said my book is interactive. One of those clips has 2 or 3 links underneath it, including documentation from, I think it's called Scientific American, from a 1958 publication that says that the radiation is 100 times the lethal dose. We have an article to that linked in one of the video clips description. 100 times the lethal dose.
Ooh, 12 months. Stay with the Falcons. Both of the people that I just unmodded come and drop me subs. Way to make me feel that shit, man. Don't go to terminal. Dave with the motherfucking Falcons. The way you unmodded it different. I bet you literally told me. What are these accounts? No, I just unmodded you because I need mods that are like just mods. No mods just I can't trust VIP though. You should have a VIP badge.
Because we did say different probes up there to figure out how much. Well, that is growing in question.
This is why we got mods, Chad. Let's use them to the best mods.
So if it was, even if we are capable of doing it, if those were fake, it would stop us from doing it today.
What you got to offer, Toby?
Yeah. And it's one of those things like
you just followed. I can't remember.
It's like Lucy would fly around the football. Always think they're gonna get that football, but nope, they pull it away from
What's up, my lady? You take KD, how we doing? And Jalen was good. Jalen, the Eagles are not missing.
Go on to actually go to Mars. And if you have the technology, they're gonna have to what precautions that they're going through in order to shield people from the radiation if they're being accurate and honest about it.
Well, yeah, Kelly Smith made an attempt to do that. I don't know if it's intentional or unintentional, but he said the technology necessary to protect astronauts from the radiation to the moon has not been invented yet. So if it's not been invented yet as of 2014, and it's not been invented yet as of today, it certainly wasn't around in 1969. And this explains that footage of why they're faking being halfway to the moon. Because they can't even go halfway. They can't leave Earth orbit. And what a surprise, 54 years later, they still cannot leave Earth orbit. That's why there's mannequins orbiting the moon, because of the deadly radiation. That's why.
Also because it's cheaper to send mannequins, to keep them alive.
Well, they said they were going to send people in 2018, and now 100% behind schedule, they can only send mannequins. So if they could send people, they would. The fact that they didn't means they can't, which means it's lethal radiation. That's what it means.
Well, that seems to be the most logical impediment, right? That and micrometers.
Well, and the fuel. Because Elon Musk is a smart guy. He says it's going to take 9 fuel trips in order to have
See if you can
fuel.
find him saying that. 8?
Oh, I'm sorry, 8. 8
So
fuel trips.
pull up him saying that.
I think he's made it more efficient now. He's made bigger containers.
So
now
what
it's
are
only 8.
people that are confronted by this information that want to refute it? What do they say?
Well, the college professor I talked to said even a confession from Buzz Aldrin that the moon missions were fake wouldn't dissuade him from the glorious moon landings. He would still think they were real.
Elon Musk says it would take 8 Starship launches to fuel up a single moon trip. Elon Musk isn't entirely sure how many starships it will take.
I would just for that's without creating a new rocket.
Yo, who's been banning them, bro?
Yep.
It's literally Fluffy gets one, Don gets
said
one.
the
Fluffy
moon
gets one,
landings
Don
were
gets one.
historical management, meaning they're
Well,
out
it's
of
like nobody
place
micromanages
at
it?
greater
Ooh, that's
technology
fine.
in the past and the future. I believe people we know take them are fake.
I might be too strung out on compliments.
You think for the follow, how we doing?
Started not to give up and stop it.
Oh, Don is Fluffy quick, man.
Every night because we drink
Every time, huh?
This,
Right, for sure, for sure.
again, this is one of those subjects.
Now, it's always good to be in a
This is
good
one
work
of the
environment,
many
bro. That's for sure.
Where if you even talk about the moon landing,
Can't go to a work like space every day and
person
not
like
like it,
yourself that says this, you're automatically put in the category of being a fool.
Isn't that interesting? If you believe the lie, you're intelligent, and if you believe the truth, you're a fool.
Not just that it's self.
I might be too strung out on compliments.
These
All
are
the girls are talented. Started not to give up and stop it.
You could tell me one back.
And every night because we drink from my accomplishments.
What has anyone ever tried to sit down and debunk you? Because I'm inviting someone to do that if they want to do that with you. Once they sit down and notice that you like the crime, the best way to stop it would be someone to sit down and go over in every detail why you're wrong. And has anybody ever done that?
I've never debated anybody about whether it was real or not.
Nobody ever wanted to?
No one ever asked me to debate them. I know that they were fake. I used to not only believe they were real, I worshipped them. And if I could
You
go
were
from
a child, right?
well, through a teenager, and admitted that I was wrong. And still, when I had all this evidence indicating the fraud, I still gave him the benefit of the doubt. That $1 million film that was financed by someone who builds rockets for NASA, who knows the moon missions are fake. Okay,
Super down.
7 years just to edit that movie.
Just DM me on Twitter or Discord, whatever's easier. I know you got me on Twitter. I don't think you got me on Discord. Whatever's easier for you.
Oh, yeah, that's Phil Plate.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a real debate. It's like a 1-minute interview. But that film took 7 years to produce. 3.5 years into it, I popped in the tape and says, don't show to the public. I hit fast forward. It's the same shot over and over again. The blue earth allegedly bouncing around. I'm like, well, let me listen to that from the top. We never played the talk, by the way. I hear a third track of audio prompting them to fake a 4-second radio delay. And I'm like, that's not the window, is it? That's not the window. The lights come up. And then it dawned on me, they really did fake it.
So before that, you were on the fence.
Well, originally I thought they went and thought it was the greatest thing. I worshipped it by having pictures in my room for many years.
And it was just Bill Casey coming out?
That and looking at the pictures as a filmmaker. I'd become a filmmaker whose job is to make fake scenes look real. And I could tell that they were fake backgrounds. I could tell that the shadows intersect. I said, still, that's not enough proof for me to say such a thing as they faked it. But when I found that footage of them faking it,
Every night because we drink from my accomplishments.
Two NBC News directors agreed it proves they didn't go. And the weird thing is, Joe, this is the linchpin. This is the finger out of the dike. You know, the JFK witness list, they say is 200 people they knocked off to keep that a secret. 9/11, 3,000. Maybe they killed 20 people to cover it up. Even though it killed the fewest number of people, it's the one that will enrage the public the most if they find out. Because they waved their flags, they got down on their knees and prayed. They gave them medals of honor. They printed it on stamps and coins, and they taught it in school. The glorious moon landing. If the public, this is what the NBC News director tried to get me to understand, which I didn't understand until recently. If the truth comes out, it will bring down the corruption. It's the linchpin. The moon landing fraud coming out has to happen, or we will never have honest government ever again.
Let's look at the Apollo 11 post-flight press conference, because this is a weird one. Because these guys just returned from the moon, and they look like they're in a hostage video.
Well, they look like they're at the funeral of their mother.
It does not seem like these are happy guys who just returned from the moon. Scooch ahead a little bit. Here we go. So look how nervous they look. Look at Michael Collins fidgeting. And obviously you wouldn't be nervous. You're addressing all these people. But it's the tone in which Neil Armstrong takes. And then after this, we're going to show the 25th anniversary speech, which is one of the most bizarre. Yeah, go to him talking. Let's sort of go back a little bit. Go back a little bit so you can hear from the ditch. Here we go.
It was our pleasure to have participated in one great adventure. It's an adventure that took place not just in the month of July, but rather one that took place in the last decade. We all here and the people listening in today had the opportunity to share that adventure over its developing and unfolding in the past months and years. It's our privilege today to share with you some of the details of that final month of July that was certainly the highlight for the three of us of that decade. We're going to divert a little bit from the format of past press conferences and talk about the things that interested us most, in particular the things that occurred on and about the moon. We will use a number of films and slides, which most of you have already seen, and with the intent of pointing out some of the things that we observed on the spot, which may not be obvious to those of you who are looking at them here from the surface of Earth. The slide, as you know, started promptly. And I think that was characteristic of all the events of the flight. The Saturn gave us one magnificent ride, both into Earth orbit and on a trajectory to the moon. Our memory of that actually differs little from the reports that you have all heard from the previous Saturn V flights, and those the previous flights served us well in preparation for this flight in the boost as well as the subsequent phases. We would like to skip directly to the translunar coast phase and remind ourselves of the chain of events, long chain of events that actually permitted the landing, starting with the undockings, the transposition and docking sequence.
This is going to go on for a long time.
Yeah, one interesting thing to note there, you see the two teleprompters there in the desk? These are the only guys on Earth who know what it was like to walk from the moon, and yet they're being prompted on how to answer the questions.
They just look very odd. It looks very odd. Another odd thing was that Michael Collins said that he couldn't see stars. And yet he wrote in his 1994 book about how magnificent the stars look.
And
also, he never left the lunar orbiter.
That's right. And also, when he's asked about stars, Neil Armstrong says, "I don't recall." And then Michael Collins, to fill in for him,
Drinking every night because we drink my accomplishments.
Low key fluffy, just let him type. I'm pretty sure I just greased my case out here so far. Let him type and then
So if you get the written transcript of that,
fuck it.
the I don't
They're gonna
remember
show
seeing
all
any
fucking get paid for it.
changes. You see, lightning strikes twice in the same place. What a coincidence. First, a typo that says Buzz said it instead of Michael Collins, and then in the video, Michael Collins answered a question he should know nothing about, having not been on the loose.
And it gets attributed to Buzz Aldrin because
But because they didn't have YouTube videos back then, people got the transcript. They said we need to correct code check. Michael Collins wasn't working, so they said Buzz.
Yeah.
So they're covering for it.
Let's play the 25th anniversary speech. Because here's one of the craziest things. Neil Armstrong, first man on the moon, doesn't want to talk about it, doesn't want to appear publicly. It's kind of reckless. And you would imagine that a guy who didn't want fame and all of a sudden he's thrust into the public light, like that would be a real problem. He probably didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, didn't enjoy being the center of attention, and said, you know what, I was on the moon, but I'm just going to look at it. Or you could look at it like if you have a guy from a public relations perspective, he's one of the most valuable people to interview of all time. He's the first man to walk on another planet. He walked on the moon. The first man we sent him to another planet. He landed on our moon and he walked around with video footage of it. That guy would be a hero. He would be everywhere. They would interview him constantly. Just from a PR standpoint, you would kind of force that guy to do some interviews and talk. Because it's the most incredible accomplishment in human history. As far as what human beings have been able to do, it's the most significant technological breakthrough ever. Put a person on another fucking planet, right? But he doesn't do that. He doesn't talk to anybody. And then he gives a speech. So he gives this speech at the 25th anniversary of NASA. And he's giving this speech to is it American valedictorians, high school valedictorians, like some of the best, brightest high school kids?
When Clinton was president.
Yeah, and so this speech is so bizarre. I've never seen anybody give a rational explanation as to what the hell he is saying, other than he's trying to tell you that something is bullshit. So listen to the speech.
1994. Neil Armstrong made a rare public appearance, held back tears as he spoke these brief cryptic remarks before the next generation of taxpayers as they toured the White House.
Today we have with us a group of students among America's best. To you, we say, we've only completed the beginning. We leave you much that is undone. There are great ideas undiscovered, breakthroughs available to those who can remove one of truth's protective layers.
What is that? What is that?
I think he's trying to say something. You know,
that is one of the most cryptic things I've ever heard anybody say.
You can also notice that he was looking down, except that part he had memorized. Perhaps someday you'll be able to remove one of truth's protective layers. Absolutely. How about that? Bizarre. As he's holding back tears, in my opinion. You know how many pictures there are of him on the surface of the moon, you know, posing as the first man on the moon? A still picture. 0. I went to the archives personally, vault. I had the employees that said, find me a picture of Neil Armstrong on the surface of the moon, a still picture. They went in and out, scratching their heads. He refused to have his picture taken. He refuses to give interviews unless the president asks him to. Insane. Not a single picture. Didn't want to have anything to do with it. It disgusted him. I believe they asked him to participate in the fraud, and at that point he was a noble man. He said, no, thank you. Then they said, you don't want to end up like following the crew, do you? The guy's a test pilot. I don't think threatened his life, man.
Or you could say, if you do this, it's for national security. There's a reason to do this. We're involved in a Cold War. It's a very important thing that we achieve military superiority over the Soviet Union.
I think he would have resigned, and they wouldn't allow that. It would bring suspicion. So I think they had to threaten. I think they would have had to threaten.
This is all speculation.
That's right. It's my speculation from years of research.
This video is not speculation.
That's right.
The video is crazy.
I think they
Most people, again, are not aware of that video.
I think they threatened his family's life to get him to participate.
Perhaps, but we're just speculating.
Yeah.
Right. But the video, again, that's not speculation. Has anybody ever gone over that video? Well, that's real simple. Yeah. Anybody ever Neil deGrasse Tyson it? Like, that's simple. It's just very simple. It's like we went. Another thing was that you could track the trip the entire way, and then people were tracking it from Earth.
Well, that's not true. The only people who had the capability of tracking it were the American government and the Soviets, who were blackmailing us for knowing that it was fraudulent.
So that's just speculation too, though, right? It's like, how were they blackmailing people? Is there any evidence that they were blackmailing?
Well, they obviously know that the moon missions are fake. Putin was not surprised. It was around that time that we sold grain to the Soviet Union before cost, even though they're supposed to be our enemy. And around the same time, after Richard Nixon said Communist China is an enemy, that he went to China, which is generally the inferior person visits the superior person. You see? And so he went, because I think they know. I think they found out and blackmailed them too. And we know they are blackmailing NASA for technology in exchange for not blowing the whistle.
You know that for a fact.
Yeah, I interviewed a guy who works for the Chinese Space Agency on my YouTube channel.
Right, but that's just him saying. That's not
that's his eyewitness testimony.
I understand. I was
talking to people who work there.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but it's still like, it's a guy saying it.
The guy who works in the Chinese Space Agency.
But if you're gonna he might not be telling the truth. Like, we don't have proof. You know what I'm saying?
Well, you have to judge. I mean, people are convicted and sent to death row based on the testimony of people all the time.
Right, but this is one guy saying something extraordinary, and extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
It's not that extraordinary that China would find out about the moon landing fraud, and instead of blowing the whistle, would blackmail as a more valuable tool of the information. I think that's what the Soviets are doing. They were being blackmailed. It's another good reason for the truth to come out, so we won't be blackmailed by China and Russia.
What do you think would happen if definitive proof came out, if Trump opened up all the files, if everybody started talking about it, and definitive proof was we got to a point technologically where we are ready to travel to other planets? We realize, hey, this is impediment, and this impediment could not have possibly been traversed by the Apollo astronauts.
Well, if the truth came out, acknowledged by the government, it would be a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful history. Because the faking of the moon landing is so much more significant than if they had actually gone. It shows the sad fallen state of mankind. It would be like throwing a glass of water in the public's face. They wake up, they realize they've been sleepwalking, and they look down, and they're 1 foot away from the cliff. It would be dead silence. Oh my gosh, that's who we are. Not just as a nation, but as a species. We can't even tell the truth about such a thing.
But wouldn't the problem then be we would have to revamp the entirety of government? If that's the case, and the intelligence agencies have done this, they really did kill Kennedy, if they really did fake the moon landing, if they really did all the things that we think they did, like, no one would have faith in them anymore.
That's right. And maybe that'll happen. And so be it. You know, the stock market could crash, the dollar could crash. It could ruin the reputation of the United States of America, but we have a gangrene limb. William Benny, worked for the NSA for 30 years. He says the CIA, the NSA, they're spying on the private cell phone conversations of Supreme Court justices to get dirt on them, to blackmail them into voting the way the CIA and NSA tell them. That's a dangerous situation for a country to be in. There needs to be a major, major house cleaning. I'm not even sure what would happen. If, let's say all the federal government ran on electricity and you could unplug it all with one plug. I'm not sure what would happen to you and me and everyone else's life if we unplugged the federal government. I don't know why we can't just have the independent states of America and manage our own affairs, because they are so corrupt. They're killing their own president. They're starting war after war based on lies and fabrication, right? We have so many murders of people that they have done themselves. The federal government is killing their own people, and we're funding it. It's wrong. What they're doing is morally wrong. Our leaders are gangsters.
What are we missing? Like, what have we not covered? We've basically done this right now. We're at like 3 hours plus. We're talking about this. What have we left out? Anything?
Well, I think we've covered most of it. We have the fact that shadows can't intersect unless it's electrical light. We have footage of them faking being halfway to the moon. We have the deathbed testimony of an eyewitness who saw them filming Apollo 11 at Kennedy Air Force Base. And we have the fact that you can't travel 1,000 times further into space in 1969 on the first attempt with 1 minute of computing power of a cell phone than you can 50 years later. Technology has never been better in the past than in the future. That proves it. If it weren't a sweet lie that people loved and don't want to give up, people would see the truth for what it is.
That's an interesting thing too, that you said it's a positive lie.
It is.
Yeah, it's not a lie like the got us through a war that wound up killing innocent civilians that we know happens.
JFK is dead, and all the people in 9/11 are dead, regardless of who did it and why. This is different. This is taking candy away from people and giving them the newer. They're defending the candy.
Okay. Would you be willing to debate somebody? If I get someone to come on here and prepare and talk to you and refute all this stuff?
Sure.
Okay. So we'll put that out there because I would like to see that. I would like to see how someone describes that away.
Okay.
And what they think about this. Because I'm sure there's eyeballs rolling and fingers hitting keyboards right now. People are going to get very outraged in this conversation. But I don't think the right way to handle this is to not talk about it or to silence someone. I think if you're wrong, the right way is to let you lay out your best argument and have someone refute that best argument. So I hope that at least is attempted.
Okay.
And you've been at this time, aren't you? You tired of talking about the moon landing?
Well,
how long have you been at this for?
It's a historic importance because the faking of the moon landing for mankind is more significant than if it actually was. That they lied to the world, embezzled money, murdered their own people to cover it up. And to not know that truth is like having cancer. We can have a great awakening about everything else, but we still are deceived about the greatest accomplishment of mankind. And there is no great awakening. It's a spiritual issue. It's a spiritual battle between truth. It's ironic. You know, there was a famous writer who said about the Tower of Babel, the monument to their pride became a memorial to their fall. And if the truth comes out, that will happen.
Do you think that this is a subject that even intelligent people that get this information of it resonates with them, that they're going to try to ignore? Because it's so controversial that you instantly get labeled a kook if you believe this.
The problem with intelligence is people can be smart, but only within a narrow field. Like I asked my doctor, get this, what do you know about natural medicine? You know what they said? Virtually word for word. All I know is what pill to prescribe for this illness that I was taught in university. That's all I know. They're intelligent within that narrow field, but they can't critically think. The universities are universal thinking. I was forbidden by the university. University of Pittsburgh, after having a contract to speak to a student body group about the moon landing fraud, they forbid it in the free speech, free expression United States of America. You see, this is a major problem. People are emotional about this. They have to be willing to be wrong, and people are so arrogant. I mean, a college professor teaching aerospace who says if Buzz Aldrin confessed on national TV that it was fake, filmed at Cannon Air Force Base, just like Bart said, he would still think he walked on the moon anyway. That's what we're up against. This is a god to them. The god of science is putting a man on the moon, when it's really just propaganda.
Right, Bart. I think you eloquently stated your case, and I think you've been at this, like I said, for a long time. So I'm really hoping that someone will sit down and talk to you about this, and we can get further to the bottom of it, because the arguments are very compelling. The actual raw facts are very puzzling. The whole thing is very odd.
Well, all this stuff people can investigate for themselves. Just go to Sabrel.com. There's 17 clips they can watch for free and then decide for themselves.
Thank you. No problem.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Liftoff.
50 years. So the feud continues, as a surprising number of people still believe that we never landed on it. The question lies at the heart of one of the greatest conspiracy theories of all time. A theory born from an era of global suspicion, political mistrust, and fake news.
The whole Apollo program was a complete fabrication.
Any identity that is quite frankly insane.
Where your shipping address types itself.
We unlock the scientific
Where all your tabs go.
once and for all. Put these conspiracy theories to rest. In the 21st century, one of the greatest achievements in history still remains a source of controversy.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Did the Apollo moon landings really happen? Or were they the biggest hoax of all time? Trevor Weaver has dedicated years of research to the Apollo missions and was once a supporter of the moon landings.
We didn't go to the moon, and that is an established fact. NASA provided all the topographical data they had, all the photographs, all the massive models to Stanley Kubrick, so they could actually fake moon scenes.
Could the moon landings actually have been faked by Hollywood director Stanley Kubrick? The history books say otherwise, that Apollo 11 astronaut Edwin Buzz Aldrin spent 3 days traveling to the moon and was the first to follow Neil Armstrong's historic footsteps.
Beautiful, beautiful. Isn't that something?
I'm totally in favor of freedom of speech, but I think intentionally, for their own benefit, misleading the young people who are the future leaders of the world.
Moon conspiracy theorists have been a small but persistent and vocal group, over the years often confronting and accusing astronauts of lying. In 2002, when conspiracy theorist Bart Sibrel buttonholed Buzz Aldrin, his temper got the better of him.
You're the one who said you walked on the moon when you didn't. Call the kettle black if ever thought of saying that. You forget it away from me. You're a coward and a liar and a thief.
The punch stirred a generation less trusting of traditional media, more open to believing fake news and theories spread on the internet.
and revived the moon landings hoax theories.
NASA never realized that we would have something called it. It's only now, when all those videos are available, that people can see what the problems are.
I think the propagation of so-called fake news, the spread, which is very welcome with access to the internet, means that we have far more sources than we used to. There is a real crisis in understanding the strength of those sources. People often have some kind of distrust of authority, governments, and so on, and they assume that there's some kind of plot to keep the information from us, that actually the propaganda victory of going to the moon could be based on something that was entirely fabricated.
But if the Apollo missions were faked, it would mean NASA had managed to keep one of the biggest secrets ever created. 50 years ago, the Soviet Union and the USA were locked in a struggle for global dominance. Then, on October the 4th, 1957, the Soviets launched Sputnik, the world's first satellite, into orbit.
Where your shipping address types itself.
And made the race to space.
Where all your tabs go, everywhere you go.
There's no doubt that
where you can surf without getting fit.
Driven by superpower rivalry, there was a degree of anxiety in the West about the advancement of Soviet technology, fearing the West somehow had lost its leadership and needed to catch up.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
At the peak of the Apollo program, NASA employed 400,000 people. But was putting a man on the moon so important that the United States government faked it? If so, a legion of NASA employees not only participated in the deception, but they kept the secret from the rest of the world.
That was such a seminal event that it wasn't just about the mission itself, but the way that influenced wider life. People began to think, oh, we can do space travel, we can actually go to other worlds.
On July the 16th, 1969, the 3 Apollo 11 astronauts prepared for liftoff. But while the world eagerly awaited for history to be made, one man was already skeptical. During the 1960s, Bill Casey was the head of technical publications for Rocketdyne, the company that helped manufacture the Apollo rockets. Casey, who claimed he had access to some of its top-secret documents, questioned the competence of the Apollo project.
I really believe that they weren't in the command capsule at all. They did a little bit of a magician act with the astronauts. They went up the elevator, but they came down the elevator. In other words, they did not want to risk the lives of the astronauts in case the Saturn blew up.
An explosive claim, which Casey said the CIA tried to silence by making 3 attempts on his life. Like Casey, Marcus Allen, British publisher of Nexus, a magazine of alternative politics, history, and science, also questions NASA's engineering capability at the time of the launches.
The problem is the whole Apollo program was a complete fabrication in order to be seen to succeed in the Cold War. The myth of Apollo is what is holding NASA back from future space travel. It's a tragedy. We didn't go the first time, we can't go now. We've never been. They lied to us.
But if NASA didn't put a man on the moon, it would have had to fake the evidence. And its own visual images have done the most to fuel conspiracy theories.
Every photograph taken on the lunar surface is online. 5,771. Some of them are not particularly good. Some are out of focus. Some are light struck. Some just don't show very much of interest. And some of them are very good indeed. And it's the very good ones I question. I do not believe they were taken on the moon. They were taken here on Earth.
Conspiracy theorists believe NASA faked all 6 of the Apollo moon landings and point to these NASA photographs as proof. Some of the most renowned claims suggest that areas lit from behind should be in dark shade, when in fact they reveal full detail. In others, the shadows don't run parallel. Is this because they were lit by separate sources, suggesting film lighting? Despite being taken in space, no stars are visible in any of the Apollo photographs. Gravity on the moon is 1/6 of that on Earth, but when archive footage is sped up, the astronauts appear to be running at normal speed in Earth's gravity. And with no atmosphere on the moon, why does the flag seem to wave in a breeze? For the purpose of this program, we filmed an experiment on a lunar set built in the Troma Concourse in the Californian desert to challenge the hoax theories and put these claims to the test. By testing some of the most famous conspiracy arguments and addressing new evidence, can we put the lunar hoax theories to rest once and for all?
This is Apollo Control Houston at 105 hours down to the flight to Apollo 11.
People all over the world were eagerly tuned in to the historic event.
Dass ein Mensch zum ersten Mal den Mond.
Astronomer Sir Patrick Moore reported the mission live on British television.
Ever since the dawn of human history, we dreamed about going around the world, and this was the first time it had been done. And of course, it was an exciting time, and also a very tense one.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
There were some amateur radio enthusiasts who built a very large dish and were able to actually listen in to the astronauts talking from the moon's surface. They didn't hear mission control, they were able to pick up just the astronauts by themselves.
Ian Morrison witnessed the event from a unique perspective. A student at the Jodrell Bank Radio Telescope in Manchester, England, he took advantage of the facilities and listened into the mission of his own accord.
I should say that we were not officially tracking Apollo craft. We were doing this for fun, our own fun and our own interest. We could hear the whole conversation of the astronauts all the way down to the surface. They were obviously highly excited, and it must have been wonderful as they sort of literally reached the surface.
That point, right now, I can observe the entire continent of North America. Okay, engine stop. We got to get down, Eagle. Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Then the voice came through, and he was there. Naturally, it was a matter of intense relief. Since I'm on the air live, I had to watch what I said.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
In 1969, the public had little reason to question mankind's historic first step on the moon. After all, the achievement was a celebration of technological supremacy. America had finally won the space race. Mankind's first steps on the moon have become the epicenter of hoax theories. Conspiracy theorists claim NASA faced a formidable challenge with its primitive 1960s technology. Just 14 months before the Apollo 11 mission, Neil Armstrong test-piloted a prototype lunar lander. The result was disastrous.
Unfortunately, it went out of his control, and luckily he was able to eject before it crashed in flames. If they couldn't get a simulator to work on Earth, how in the world could they get the actual lunar module to work on the moon?
That was I knew what they were. There was no professional rescue. Had they made a 40 landing, they couldn't have gone there. That would have been too costly to compensate.
Conspiracy theorists question not only the technical capabilities of the landing craft, but also the computing power than guiding it.
The risk is too great. They could not afford to risk failure. They wouldn't allow themselves to rely on science and technology. Yeah.
Pat Norris is a former space system and software engineer hired by NASA to analyze the challenges of navigating to the moon and back.
In the 1950s, computers didn't really exist. But by the mid-1960s, computers were available but were powerful enough to do the calculations needed for such a complicated mission. Of course, by comparison with today's computers, they were very primitive.
While these advancements should surely encourage a new line of missions, conspiracy theorists argue that this is enough to question if we ever could have gone in the first place.
We're talking about the mid-1960s, when computers occupied rooms. The sort of computing power that you have with a mobile phone today would be greater than the computing power that was alleged to have been used to land man on the moon. One of the reasons that we had difficulty in navigating close to the moon was that the computers available weren't able to provide a sufficiently detailed mathematical model to use gravity. Perhaps there wasn't enough information. But even if there had been enough information, the computers probably wouldn't have been able to cope with it. They were adequate for mission lifetime. Only helps.
Unlike modern-day PCs, the Apollo computers didn't have to store files or process images. Most of the number crunching was done at mission control, and the information transmitted back to the astronauts. In their attempt to disprove the missions, conspiracy theorists have analyzed the footage of the moon landings frame by frame. One of the most famous pieces of footage in history is Buzz Aldrin's dance across the moon scene.
Near the end of the 2.5 hours, in front of the television camera, I did have an opportunity to prance around and hop and demonstrate different methods of moving around. The movement, because of the restrictions in the spacesuit, was basically like being in slow motion.
The famous lunar walk shows Aldrin experimenting with the restrictions of the spacesuit.
So-called kangaroo hop. That works, but it seems your forward stability is not quite as good.
Conspiracy theorists have claimed that the footage was actually filmed in slow motion in a studio, and that the astronauts were supported by wires to replicate these movements on the moon.
The astronaut is dangling on a wire to take off. Like the difference between the Earth gravity and the moon gravity. The wire was between the backpack of the body. The problem is the astronaut tended to rely on this wire. So you see lots of jerky movement.
Astronauts were wearing pretty big and bulky spacesuits, and the weight distribution isn't the same as you or I walking around on the surface of the Earth here. The astronauts had to really cope with that and work out if they're top heavy, how to move around such that they weren't going to fall over all the time and be unbalanced.
You do have to be rather careful to keep track of where your center of mass is.
You can see that astronauts really adapted really well to that. It started to kind of develop this new walk.
While the exact conditions of the moon couldn't be replicated on Earth, NASA introduced methods to adapt the astronauts. One of their favorite methods was parabolic flight, or as the astronauts called it, the vomit comet. By climbing and diving in a series of arcs, an aeroplane could simulate 30-second windows of reduced gravity. These sessions served as road tests for the spacesuits and gave astronauts their first taste of lunar gravity. If, as the conspiracy theorists claim, NASA faked the Apollo missions, then it also had to fake the photographic evidence.
I was trained as a photographer in London back in the 1960s. I was familiar with the camera that was used, the Hasselblad camera, and also with the film that was used, Kodak Ex-Creme transparency material. So I was familiar with the technical side of it. And the more I looked at the photographs, the more I started to doubt whether what we've been told had happened had actually happened the way we've been told.
Also siding with Marcus, American conspiracy theorist Ralph Rene raised a different technical question. Could the gloves the astronauts wore on their pressurized spacesuits have actually worked on the moon?
What I do is I fill a vacuum in this chamber I created, and I have a glove inserted inside of it. And it was to prove that the flexibility they shown in their suits and gloves are impossible. Right now, I can put my hand in there and I can move it every which way. I can grasp and make a fist. I can lift up, down. But as soon as I throw this switch here, I evacuate the chamber.
As air is sucked out of the machine, the vacuum makes it more and more difficult to move the glove.
And this glove doesn't want to move. I can't bend it backwards. I can hardly force it down. I mean, how could you pick up small screws and bolts like they've shown them to do, or trigger a little tiny trigger on the camera with the glove in this?
If it seems impossible to operate a camera properly in pressurized gloves, how could these perfect pictures have been taken? Trained aerospace engineer Jay Windley has extensively researched the moon landing conspiracies and was present at the experiment on the moon set to refute these theories.
This is a Hasselblad EL500 camera manufactured specially for moon missions. It attached to the spacesuit via this bayonet. The camera would have a framework surrounding the bottom and rear of the camera that would slide down onto the control unit here so that the astronaut could work with his hands without worrying about the camera.
Lunar cameras didn't have a viewfinder because the astronauts' helmets prevented them from looking down and framing the shot.
Basically, you could just sort of point that camera at what you wanted without having to be able to look through a viewfinder.
But according to conspiracy theorists, this was a problem that couldn't be solved.
And just focus it, set the shutter speed, set the aperture by hand, wearing armored gauntlets. You can't see the shutter button on Hasselblad's on the camera. You don't know if you've taken a photograph, you can't hear it on the place. You can't see the counter dial from the side of the camera. So with all those restrictions, we're some of the most iconic images ever taken in the 20th century. I don't believe it.
I forgot about it. Take one of my first pictures there.
Jay Windley investigated how these design features on the Hasselblad would have been operated by the astronauts.
The Zeiss Viagon lens here has been fitted with these little paddles to allow the astronaut to manipulate them with clumsy fingers. You just push it in either direction. The shutter release, normally a very small button, has been made especially large so that it can be pressed with an astronaut's glove. The focus ring has been fitted with stops that correspond to near, medium, far, and infinity. So he didn't have to pay attention to whether he was 8 feet or 9 feet away from the subject. He wouldn't have to very carefully measure it.
Richard Underwood was responsible for teaching Apollo astronauts the art of lunar photography.
Even in the early days, before they went to say, you know, when you get back from this journey, you'll be a national hero. But the photographs, if they're good, they'll live forever. I tell them your only key to immortality is the quality of your photography. Nothing else. Forget all the other stuff.
The astronauts were told to take their lunar cameras everywhere they went and practice.
They took them home to photograph their friends and family, and barbecues, and sporting events, and all other types of things. They knew that camera was very, very effective. All of the crew members understood pretty well how to operate this. And the film turned out to be very, very versatile and coming up with just outstanding results.
But these outstanding results led to one of the most famous photographic anomalies, the strange case of the lunar shadows.
The shadows are one of the strong proofs that we never went to the moon. If you examine pictures offered by NASA as genuine, you find that in many cases the shadows are not parallel. Well, since the sun was the only source of light, all shadows on the moon should be exactly parallel, but they aren't.
Because the lunar shadows fall in different directions, some conspiracy theorists claim that they were created by separate artificial light sources.
There's only one sun. There are not two. But these shadows are anomalous in that sometimes they are diverging from objects and sometimes converging. and can't be. You can go any place on the planet when the sun's up, and you look at two objects, and those sun shadows are parallel.
But according to physicists, there are reasonable explanations for why we find that shadows aren't always parallel.
There's lots of different things which can make shadows go in different directions. I mean, obviously, you have shadows pointing away from the sun, but if your camera is a wide-angle camera, you get a perspective effect on the shadows.
The effect of converging shadows is a well-known optical phenomenon in photography. This effect is created where there is a single light source. For both the moon and the Earth, this source is the sun.
If you have bits of topography on the surface, like troughs, they can produce shadows which appear to be at right angles to the main direction of the sun.
But if we look at the photos, Aldrin appears to be brightly lit up. Shouldn't the astronaut's body be in darkness?
He's standing in a pool of light. It's a spotlight. It's not the sun. This is taken here on Earth on a controlled studio light applications with a whacking great, probably a 12K area spotlight.
On the moon, you're not just illuminated by the sun shining towards you and casting a shadow behind you, but there's also a huge area of the moon's surface around you, and that provides backlight to any subject on the moon's surface. You can also get reflections of light objects like spacesuits, if they're fairly close to whatever they're illuminating.
And specifically, the light bouncing off the highly reflective lunar module. In these pictures, you can clearly see where a pool of light appears. If you look at pictures where the astronauts are away from the module, the surface appears evenly lit. Another cause for suspicion among conspiracy theorists is Apollo's symbolic highlight, the American flag.
Wherever there's an American flag, it's always brilliantly lit up, even if it's on the shadow side. And on the shadow side, that should be really dark black. But they had little spotlights, obviously, because that's the only way you can do it.
The flag they took to the moon was made of nylon, which is fairly translucent material. It lets light through, so I wouldn't expect to see one side bright and one side dark.
Here we can see our flag brightly lit from the front. If we move around to the back, we can see that even with our single light source, it's still brightly lit. The light is shining through and making the flag glow.
But why does the lunar flag wave around if there's no wind on the moon?
The stage sets were very hot. Because when you film in slow motion, you need more light. As each frame is being exposed, they had 144 frames per second, so they needed very, very strong light. Therefore, it was probably very hot. Probably they had some fuel.
Is this waving flag the ultimate proof the landings were faked in a studio? With no atmosphere on the moon, the planting of the Apollo flag has caused some controversy.
If you look at how the flag swings, the edge of the flag is actually like a pendulum. If you know the length of the pendulum, you know the time of the swing, you can say where the gravity is.
So how could the flag flapping on the windless moon be explained? Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin may not have been thinking about that question as they prepared for the historic moment.
Putting the flag on the moon was really a symbolic highlight. It was one that we had not really rehearsed. Neil knew where the flag was stowed. We brought it out, then we had to put the two pieces together.
The astronauts had to drive the flagstaff into the hard lunar surface with a twisting motion. A horizontal aluminium rod kept the flag suspended.
And this caused the free end of the flag to flip up and back in response to that. Also, this is an aluminum tube, very similar to the ones used on the Apollo mission. It's very springy. If I cause it to spring and then let go of it, we see that this motion continues long after I let go.
Once it's in the surface, then those oscillations gradually dampen away over time, the vibrations going down the flagpole, and then it's pretty much stable after that.
Conspiracy theorists point to another strange anomaly, one that can't be explained by lack of atmosphere. As the 16-ton landing craft touched down, its powerful rockets would be expected to blast off. Away the top layer of dust, exposing the rocky lunar surface. But footprints were visibly photographed beneath the spacecraft. Dust on the landing pads.
One of the problems that was encountered was the dust that we discovered prior to landing. And as you see, on that road, a land.
Ralph Rennie devised an experiment to illustrate his notion that the rocket-powered lander should have left a crater. If a garden leaf blower, which is dramatically less powerful, can move dust with Earth's gravity, why didn't a rocket which produced 10,000 pounds of thrust?
They didn't move dry dust. They didn't move little rocks. They didn't move anything. The demonstration is to show that this stuff will disappear immediately, and I'll even be able to get some kind of a hole.
If Rennie is correct, the lunar surface, like the gravel pit, would show visible signs of disturbance.
But when it actually landed, the dust was all still there. Now, how can that be? You know, if you blow dust away, it goes away, like I just did here. I swept the ground.
Some people think that when you land on the moon, you should get a very big crater underneath the rocket nozzle, the module. But that's not the case, because when they were coming in, they'd already throttled down to at least about a quarter of the maximum thrust. And just above the surface, they turned off the rocket motors. So any exhaust was actually pretty feeble when it landed on the surface.
Different engines did not leave a crater of any size.
If you look at the pictures, you can see very slight depression underneath the rocket nozzle where dust and a little bit of soil has been radially blown away in different directions around the module.
And a closer inspection of some of the photographs reveals that the landing did, in fact, disturb a very fine layer of dust, but not enough to cover the landing pads.
I can see some evidence of Rennie's emanating from beneath that engine, but very insignificant amount.
But the NASA images from the mission aren't the only proof of the module landing on the surface. Satellite images taken of the lunar surface in more recent years could suggest more compelling evidence of the Apollo landings. The Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter is robotic spacecraft launched by NASA in 2009 to orbit the moon.
Using some very high resolution cameras and being relatively close to the moon's surface, it's actually been able to pick out each of the 6 Apollo landings. And not only the descent stages when they landed, locations of flags, experiments, 3 rovers that would actually last 3 missions.
But some argue that these satellite images aren't as detailed as they expected when they were taken in 2011.
The lunar orbiter was deliberately flown over what is reported to be the Apollo landing site, and from a height of 12 miles, i.e. not very far at all. What do you see? A couple of pixels. If you looked at these images without NASA putting on whacking their arrow, you wouldn't know what you're looking at.
While satellite images of the equipment left behind may not be detailed enough to persuade some, there are other markers of man-made interference in the images.
I'd say what you see is just miniature pixels. But you don't get a sharp picture, a nice clean picture of the moonlight. The other picture shows some discoloration in the area where the moonlight took off. So that seems very consistent with what NASA said.
Alongside the lunar reconnaissance images, evidence from other missions have also been able to confirm the Apollo landing sites.
Altitude 42, anything you're go for landing over.
Of course, we've also had the Chinese and the Japanese with their own lunar missions. They are able to image the areas in which the landings took place, and there are evidence of soil disturbance. So we do have that third party.
There's one more big question conspiracy theorists ask about the Apollo 11 photographs. With no weather on the moon, you would expect a spectacular view of space. Yet, there are no stars in the Apollo photographs.
Some of these conspiracy theories, they think that if you go to the moon, you should be able to see stars because there's no atmosphere there, so space should be nice and black, so you should be able to see a lot more stars there, showing in the photographs.
Bill Casey is convinced this was a conscious decision on NASA's part.
If you were to talk to Aldrin or Armstrong or any of the other Apollo astronauts, they would actually not respond in any way to questions regarding stars.
When you looked up at the sky, could you actually see the stars of the solar corona in spite of the glare?
We were never able to see stars from the lunar surface or on the daylight side of the moon by eye without looking through the optics.
I asked the answer when he saw a star. I knew it was the answer. I knew the answer, of course. Mind it, the eyes wanted that, but then.
The human eye reacts to light by opening and closing the iris. In bright light, the iris becomes smaller. In the dark, it widens. On the moon, the eye, like the camera aperture, can't adjust to the brightness of the lunar surface and the darkness of space at the same time.
If you increase the aperture, you increase the amount of light going in. And if you increase the exposure time, you also increase the amount of light going in. Now, if you were to do that on the moon to get confirmed, then that would mean that the foreground would just be completely washed out and overexposed. When really what the astronauts were trying to take pictures of was themselves, surface features of the moon.
You can imagine going, let's say, to a football stadium and all the lights are turned out and you look up at the sky and you see lots of stars. And you can imagine some person turned on a floodlight, it would drown out pretty much all the stars.
With the powerful light, even our own television camera can't adjust to the extreme contrast to see the stars in the sky. On our moon set, Jay Windley puts this theory into practice in the hope of disproving one of the conspiracy theorists' recurring arguments.
We're going to find out that if we use an identical camera loaded with identical film and we shoot pictures of the night sky, we'll get stars. Here. You notice here I'm not using any sort of a viewfinder, just aiming.
Will this experiment be enough to invalidate the conspiracy theorists' claims? The morning after the shoot, negatives are developed at a professional processing laboratory in Los Angeles.
In our experiment in the desert, we shot a variety of photographs using different film formats. Like the Apollo astronauts, we had to guess at our focusing distances and our exposure settings. And because we had no viewfinder, we had to guess at the direction the camera was pointing. And you can clearly see that even with those handicaps, we were able to take quite usable photographs. You can immediately see that there were no stars in this photograph, even though the stars were very bright during our experiment. They're simply too dim to be registered on film at the exposure level we used to take these photographs.
Our experiment demonstrates that the stars could not have been seen in the photographs taken on the lunar surface. But this explanation doesn't satisfy magazine publisher Marcus Allen. He believes it's impossible that any of these photographs could survive a journey to the moon and back in the first place.
Photographic film cannot withstand the vacuum of space. So how did they get all these fantastic photographs we've been shown forever about Apollo astronauts on the moon, when the film was not in a pressurized environment, let alone radiation protection?
Conspiracy theorists believe this is their trump card. Not only would it destroy film, it would kill the astronauts. The Earth's magnetic field protects our planet from solar rays. But beyond this zone, deep in space, is where conspiracy theorists believe astronauts will be vulnerable to radiation's deadly effects.
The moon is irradiated by the sun constantly with terrible heat. And of course, there's cosmic radiation. And then there are micrometeorites that travel 60,000 miles an hour that would go right through the camera, the film, and of course, the astronauts themselves.
After leaving the Earth's atmosphere, the astronauts rocketed through the Van Allen belts.
Van Allen, he said it was a safe, deadly radiation. You would pick up a death dose just about the time you got through the Van Allen shield, you'd be hooked, you'd be dying.
These radioactive belts form a thick ring encircling the equator, thinning out around the north and south poles.
So they get an engine that'll lift the life capsule surrounded by 6 feet of water or equivalent mass of lead. They don't even dare go through the shield.
That's a new thing. Don't you think that when they went through the Van Allen belt, they would have said, right? Surely you would say this, because if they were in any way incapacitated, it would be a disaster.
When NASA designed the trajectory to go through the Van Allen radiation belt, it was done so that the astronauts would go very, very quickly through there, so they wouldn't get a very high dosage. And they also picked part of the Van Allen radiation belt, which the levels of radiation were quite weak.
NASA claims the astronauts endured only a brief exposure, penetrating the thinnest section of the belts in 1 hour.
The Van Allen radiation belt is a zone of radiation around the Earth. It's shaped a little bit like a donut with 2 centers in it. It's got a very strong, nasty area around here, so you can see that's a darker area, and that's the inner belt, and the outer belt over here, which is a little bit more benign. And the Apollo astronauts were sent on a trajectory which avoided the inner belt, so they were in a relatively safe part of there, and they went through fairly quickly, so they didn't hang around inside the Van Allen radiation belt for very long.
But once they passed through, they faced an even greater danger.
Here we have these guys running around in tinfoil craft, stopping solar radiation. And I'm not talking about the light, I'm talking about the radiation from the solar storms.
It's always risk in space. For example, you can have solar storms where you can get massive doses of radiation being knocked out from the sun.
These eruptions from the sun can knock out satellites and electricity grids on Earth. But they can also be detected by an early warning computer system.
If there was some form of solar storm, big radiation discharge, the astronauts could actually be exposed to acceptable and unacceptable hazard, which would be a real risk. So there were solar scientists actually monitoring the solar activities to make sure that they weren't about to launch onto the potential.
Just 3 months after the Apollo 16 mission, NASA admitted that a violent solar flare hit the moon's surface, an eruption so powerful it could have killed the astronauts had they been there.
The point is that the American Apollo astronauts did not have protection against these levels of radiation. And we know that because NASA now admits as a result of the Orion Apollo 2.0. The levels of radiation suffer to find out means to protect them before they can save humans through these levels of radiation. But they sent the Apollo astronauts, so what's the problem? The problem is they didn't send the Apollo astronauts.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth.
Those are the words of President Kennedy in that. There were 3 parts of that sentence. Get humans to the moon before the decade is out and safely. And safely was only 1 to 3. And there were a number of occasions during the course of the Apollo program when particularly the phrase before the decade is out. All climate took priority over safety. Sometimes they can take for this.
The astronauts could only rely on their spacecraft to survive a solar flare.
By studying the disk of the sun, you can make predictions about when these are going to likely happen and avoid those times. And even if there was a storm, if the astronauts were in the command module, you could rotate the command module so you've got a lot of the fuel, the oxygen, and the water in between the astronauts and the direction the radiation's coming in. And if you're on the surface, then you could potentially go and hide behind a rock, or you could even launch off from the surface before the nasty bits of the solar storm arrive.
For conspiracy theorists, radiation is the final nail in the coffin. They believe the astronauts could never have survived a trip to the moon and back. But Could the objects they returned with also be the key to unlocking secrets from the lunar surface itself, and provide a definitive answer to the question? Did we really?
Three scatter organic, that's okay. We're getting fucked with the four scatter.
But the moon rock from the mission was just another part of NASA's
Oh my god. Yeah, I mean, look, oh my, what is that? 7? Oh my god, what the fuck is that? Hey, we'll take that, Oh my god, one more that would be max, right? That probably would be max. Can we add one more stack, please?
The Apollo mission was brought back over 382 kilograms of lunar soil. These samples were distributed to laboratories all over the world. At the Independent Federal Bureau of California, geologists were reviewing these rock samples the main cause of these new glass spheroids were the created by intense heat from meteorites. The spheroids were analyzed and formulated in labs, so they are made but they can be cooled very, very quickly to essentially form glass skin. Using a laser heating system to release gases starting inside the spheroids, all of that injects the evidence of cosmic radiation to discover clues on the age of the star.
I don't know if you're joking or I don't know.
Sure,
severe damage control.
Which we don't see on Earth because we're in the atmosphere. Renee has been studying
Penelope is a little bad.
This only eliminates the possibility that they originated.
Well, so you want to work or should I get to?
It's not to observe these glassy objects, where it includes essential ability. Does tell you
Here comes the next one.
results of it. Absolutely.
This guy's not that clever. He's like creating a lot of the same names, but just with the numbers. You can probably go, 33, 32, 31. It's not the most clever guy. Oh, shows up whenever I get a max set. Weird. I'm betting there's 36 results.
There were two major experiments.
See if there's
Conspiracy theorists believe that these experiments were taking place before the you don't need the actual effective laser. Without a reflector, what is the advantage of NASA space?
I was trying to say the maximum on the regular 3-scan holders. I'd love to see that. There's another proof that you don't need bodies silver. Which I'm still doing, but what does it matter, right? That's what you're thinking, but
describe the Apollo-led crew allowed scientists to achieve greater accuracy about the Earth's position in the solar system.
Okay, should we continue?
In the world, big telescope, powerful laser, and thousands.
Honestly, wait. Now that we got that, wait, Chad, wait.
Astronauts went there.
Now that we got the now that we got that, let me try this one. I want to do this one. What do you think? One or two? One or two? One or two?
The Soviet Union and East
Just
Germany also have a technology
2 minutes
on the Apollo missions. And yet conspiracy theorists ignore the eavesdropping power of science of America's army.
Oh, it's like 50-50. All right. So we'll do of them. Line up. Okay, we have to get the S. American goes super turbulent till. Okay, that's bad. That's typical bonus.
But even with no doubt raised on the Russians,
When does this get good? Is it like we have 2 or 3 reels done? Like 2? Wow.
There will be.
You get 2 hits and then next. Okay. So when it gets 2, we go regular spins, I guess.
We don't see the same pattern. One of the biggest, if not the biggest achievement. Now with that
all the effort it would take to create and hide that values such magnetism, it would have been far easier for NASA to build a rocket and put man on it.
Yeah, I'm not the change up about it though. Rabbi, Rothschild, stream live 24/7 for world peace. Is he streaming for escape for what? Superbs. Gentlemen, bunch of egg white on the last one. You got the yolk and the egg whites. What's he actually cooking? As he said, I know it's something from the RuneScape cookbook, but has he actually said what he's cooking or anything, mate? Spinach roll. Oh, that's why the spinach was spinach roll. A legendary item. I'm not sure if we'll be doing any CMs today. Any CDs? May I request what CDs is? CDM, yes. No, I've got, you coast logo, we can't afford it. In fact, normally that's when I don't recognize the name of the person I'm listening. So it's some random guy. Yeah, like Billy Moore, but joins the show, and it's like, you don't clock it, instantly young. Not the best. Hold on, we got another Rabbi Rothschild follower kind of him. Any moment now. Any moment now.
I think we should.
Adjusting the aperture of Asian cameras. Dragon SpaceX on the Big Loop. Approach 1, a soft capture extension will begin shortly. Dragon will to a waypoint 2, with the additional lighting assessment occurring at 100 meters, as previously noted. For awareness, if sunlight results in the loss of the Dragonite geofilters, Dragon will autonomously retreat back to waypoint 1, remaining on closed loop control using the time of flight filters of the people. So may have missed a call as we were switching Teeter satellites. Looking at about 20 seconds to go until we convert to waypoint 1. There's going to be an approach burn maneuver using Draco thrusters. It's called approach 1. That'll move the Dragon from right in front of the docking axis, 220 meters
meters away and start moving in, closing in to waypoint 2, just 20 meters away from the docking axis. Of course, they'll be monitoring along the way.
Did hear the Corps mention that they are going to have a checkpoint to make sure that there isn't too much sunlight on the space station with the prevent Dragon from docking. If that does happen, Dragon will autonomously back out and wait until the sunlight is cleared. Ensure a good docking with the space station. Because this is all autonomous, it uses some visual cameras to align with the docking port. So it's really important that we don't have that sunlight getting in the way.
Together streamer? No. The Rothschild.
And of course, reiterated that they will be checking to make sure that the sunlight is not.
How many followers again, Gemma? Skill specs has been the only round. Wait. Bro, imagine, like, because obviously it's a Jagex-sponsored stream, right? Imagine he just burn everything. Jagex alive. Yes. Jeez, get you. How many Rabbi Rothschilds on it?
Dragon has passed waypoint 1, 220 meters in front of the station, executed a curve in the first line, so we're in approach 1. And it's heading towards waypoint 2.
Let me just spin it for a little. You know, Mr. Rabbi Rothschild, bro, if you are a human being, another block, okay? Listen carefully. Wait. I was praying the wrong thing. Shit. 60, 74. Okay, hold on, man. I'll speak in a moment. I'm kind of giggle this. I am real. Oh shit, he is. Okay, I'll have to be a man of my word then, man. Basically, my friend, follow Rabbi, whatever the hell the names are, bro. He was one with the 73 at the end. Got my knockout? Okay, I'll let that one live. No, ain't no I said. No more with a 73, but I'll let that one live. Unless I die now, then you're dead, but 60 soon, each. Yeah. We'll leave that one to me now. Is there actually a genuine kick account with a called Rabbi Rothschild? Because if so, I'm going to have to check him out. There's 3 of them live right now. Well, they actually streaming. Pretty good. should be live right now. 5 Rothschilds. Now, what are they actually streaming? Because I haven't seen any of the content.
They stream my life 24/7, 365, period. I have more content online than any person in global history, period. My life 24/7, period. My life is a real-life Truman Show or Big Brother.
Hold on, so much in the chat. I'm trying to kill this crew. So much in the chat. I'm trying to kill the crew. Rabbi Rothschild.
Yo, what up, Digital 420? I don't know if you can see me. We talk about all kinds of futuristic things like cryptocurrency, cryotherapy, stem cell research, ufology, life extension technology, mind uploading technology, digital immortality, de-extinction of animals like the woolly mammoth and saber-toothed tiger.
The extinction of animals like the woolly mammoth and the saber-toothed tiger. What are your thoughts then, Mr. Rabbi Rothschild, on the velociraptor?
I think the velociraptor was one of the most aggressive carnivores in global history, period. I think that we will use much of what we thought velociraptor behavior was in futuristic drone behavior and swarm behavior of AI, period. I am more an advocate that Tyrannosaurus Rex may have been less of a threat in prehistoric times than a pack of velociraptors, which seems as if it was one of the most menacing forces ever on Earth, period.
One of the most aggressive carnivores in global history. I think that we will use much of what we thought velociraptor behavior was in futuristic drone behavior in swarm. The Tyrannosaurus Rex may have been less of a threat in prehistoric times than a pack of velociraptors, which seems as if it was one of the most menacing forces ever on Earth. Oh, bro, we've been talking about omelets for like 4 hours, Dusty, man. I'm not gonna lie, lie, bro. I don't know if he just Googled that and had like ChatGPT whack that one up, but that is a legit and a fantastic answer if that was from him on thoughts on the Velociraptor. That was all your answer? It was a genuinely very good answer. Egg, onion, cheese, chorizo, bacon, a couple of peas and a little bit of Tabasco. Right, why the peas? That's a very interesting addition there. As for the Tabasco, I may have to look into that one. That sounds good. Try shallots, very finely diced. I can try that. That's the onion and stuff makes things better, so shallots, red onion, white onion, all good. Best way to make GP in this game, Solar Chambers? No, the best way is Nex. Nex is some good Skrilla right now, not including sepsis. Mr. Rabbi, do you watch any other streamers? If so, who are we lucky enough to be with? What are we doing? We're doing a Brimstone Key Slam, Mr. Lanaro, and we currently have a Kriaritas, aka the Pigeon. The only item that I need from this pigeon is, and I quote, the pet. Tebow Shadow rebuild, which one would you do? I probably personally would do a Tebow rebuild. Sorry, a Shadow rebuild, because I feel like everyone does Tebow rebuilds. Shadow, I think, would be a little more... I don't really know how I'd kill, but there's a lot of other random shit you can do. And the upgrades, you get so many more upgrades in a way. It would be a bit harder, though, because obviously the Shadow costs a lot and it's giggly without anything, so you need to go make like a quick mill for an occult, get a major in a 2k, then you upgrade to a tormented bracelet, and then go from there. Action Man, Amoranti G, One Sonic, Homeless, Nick White, every big streamer I can find. Ooh, well, you're not a big streamer right now, but you know, that view account would be saying otherwise. Unless the definition of a big streamer to you. You know, but yeah, what is the definition of a big streamer to you, Mr. Redman? Because I feel like he's decided to throw a little small streamer into the mix right now with our little channel. A humble channel on the big pond.
I have more content online than any person in global history. I have live streamed my life 24/7, 365 from 5 different streams for more than 3 years, period. When people find out about this, it will be the biggest event in global history, period. You will become a trillionaire, period.
trillionaire IOL. I don't really know what the net worth of the richest in the world is currently going up by. Like, is anyone above 300 million as of right now? Because realistically, I don't know if anyone with a current business is going to be the first trillionaire. And it is probably going to be some guy that ends up mining an asteroid or some shit. Elon's close to 300 bill. Wait, is he number one in the world again? I thought it was the guy in charge of the Louis Vuitton shit. Right, it's so expressive. I can't do this, bro. It's way too chill. I'm just gonna click this. That song was way too quiet for me. First trillionaire is Moti after renewing the King contract.
Got some good words that room is ready for docking the International Space Station. They no longer full words.
Jeff Bezos, 194. Oh, unlucky. You love also RuneScape. Haven't played forever, such a good game. Great choice of game to love, Mr. Cobra. And if you want to play it again, just need to make sure your life is failing when you do it, because otherwise you might lose it. Jeff is only 1 billion behind Elon. Only 1 billion. Just a quick bill, you know. A few hours on King, you know. That's what he needs to do, bro. Sign the kick contract, do a couple hours shooting, bro. Just a billion, bro. Trying to get anything specific, or we're just killing creep? If we get the pet, we're on Slayer's ass, but if we get the pet, we green this. Hello, Mr. Ryan, how we doing? Just clicked on the Oda block stream, you know the usual. Well, when the O is live, you should watch. next year you'll be bigger than the Big O? No, I highly doubt it. I'd like to think we'll have grown the channel a bit over the course of our contract, but I don't think at any point we'll be bigger than the O now. The O is on a level above. And we watched it happen. From the debt days to the... Yeah. $90 billion debt paid off, and now he's the richest. So Arab oil is way more rich than the Forbes top five. Oh, so the Forbes list is wealth that's known about. So in my opinion, the richest people on the planet are genuinely probably the Saudi, like, princes and all that. They are they're just a level above. But we don't have a clue. Putin's also one of those guys. Probably genuinely true, yeah. Have I considered doing an Ironman again? I probably will do it. I really have absolutely no idea what could possibly make me want to do a solo one again. I really don't. I bet the only way I'd ever do a solo again, legit, is when I've beaten the whole collection lot minus the Mega Enders. And that's just not going to happen. But I think that's probably the only thing all way. But then at that point, I don't know if I want to do speed running or some shit. I don't know what to speed up. Even the route was good. What was the best time I had? It was between Aussie and Granoom Crew. In my opinion, they're basically about even. But Granoom Crew was, in my opinion, if I could choose one of them right now to continue when it died and it never died, I'd choose Granoom Crew. And my reasoning for that is Aussie had a sap, and that's the only thing that it had that Granoom Crew did not have. But Granoom Crew had a Dragon Hunter crossbow and a rapier. So it's basically, what would you rather have on the account? A sign for a Dragon Hunter crossbow and a rapier. And the way I wanted to play my account, I would take the DHCB over the side. There was something else on the account as well. I can't quite remember what was better, but... But yeah, I was at Vorkath. Oh no, I also had Granoom Crew had Rapier, Dragon Hunter crossbow, and the Dragonfire Ward from the best in slot, like shield for range. And I had that when I was doing my Vorkath grind for the prep. And the only thing Aussie had on top, which wasn't, was a scythe. So yeah. Can you over some people? Thank you for being so nice to me. Please check out my streams. I'm always live 24/7.
Soft capture ring retraction does take some time. It is continuing at its anticipated looking good. First in a series of steps to officially meet Dragon to the station. guys for joining us. We heard a call out for soft capture confirmed at 2:08 a.m. Pacific time, 4:08 a.m. Eastern time. Station and Dragon 264 statute miles over the South Indian Ocean. Time of contact and capture. We're still in the process of retracting the soft capture rate. Anticipating proceeding with the hard capture sequence. 12 folks will drive to officially mate Dragon with the International Space Station's International Docking Adapter at full port. Her Dragon Endeavour docked to that full port for the second time.
Dragon SpaceX, on the debut where your traction is complete, docking sequence is holding for MCS reconfiguration.
Screen Crew Dragon has made contact with the International Space Station. Currently in progress of Endeavour and Station. NCS is configured, proceeding with host diving. This will take a few minutes to complete.
By that MCS is just figuring the International Space Station's attitude control. It needed to be configured differently between soft capture and hard capture sequence. So now that that's been confirmed, they can go ahead and press to drive the 12 hooks needed to confirm a hard capture. To reiterate, the Dragon had contact and capture with the space station at 2:08 a.m. Pacific time, 5:08 a.m. Eastern. Space Station and Dragon crossing over the Terminator line just south of Australia. About to head over the South Pacific Ocean. Start seeing the views of Dragon get a little bit dimmer as we still undergo the hard capture sequence. Still undergoing the hard capture sequence. There's 12 folks that drive to officially meet Dragon to the International Space Station, 6 of them driving currently. Station attitude configured to support the hard capture sequence. Now operating on controllable gyros to maintain attitude control during the hard capture sequence.
first set of hooks. All 6 have been driven. They look good. The second set are driving, and they're looking good at the anticipated speed. Halfway there.
This will take just a couple more minutes for hard capture to complete. As a reminder, after hard capture is complete, they do still have some more steps that they need to go through in order to ensure that the space station and Dragon are safe for crew ingress. There will be the hatch company as the crew as well. The crew on board Dragon as well as the station will be walking through some procedures prior to ingress of the crew on the International Space Station. But once they do ingress on the station, there will